Have you ever been randomly scrolling through the internet and seen an advert that makes you think they must have read your mind, rather than just formed an extremely detailed set of demographic data based on your online presence and purchase history and applied machine learning to the issue? But if there's one thing I love more than cheap fabric, it's surprises. So a lucky dip of clearance fabric seemed like the ideal thing for me. I can even pretend I'm helping reduce fabric waste through taking stock nobody else wants. That's totally how that works, right? In the end, I purchased 3 bundles from 2 separate places. I got the mixed lucky dip from Dalston Mills, which cost £30 plus £3.99 shipping, and claimed to include at least 20 metres of fabric, which would work out at approximately £1.70 per metre. And from the somewhat interestingly named Pound a Metre, I got the 10 metre mixed wool bundle, priced at £25, and the 10 metre furnishing velvet bundle, also priced at £25 with £4.99 shipping, which is a whopping £2.75 a metre. I ordered both on the same day, and the Dalston Mills delivery arrived within 3 days. Let's do this thing and see how well the audio turns out. Welcome to the floor. The floor is where I live now. Let's take a look. I promise I opened it and I have not looked in. I just wanted to check that it was the parcel I thought it was. Okay, cool. We'll just go. Ooh. Well, this feels like lining. Yeah, that's super. You can probably see my hand through it. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything majorly fancy as the first thing out the bag. Okay, clearly polyester. There's quite a lot of it. Consult the measuring device. Okay, so there's just over 3 metres of that. It's not bad. It's not, you know, groundbreaking, but it's okay. Ooh, boy. Oh, hello. So this will need a lining because it is partially see-through, but also look at it. Gosh, it's not a small piece either. It is, again, almost exactly 3 metres. So far, so good. Wouldn't be surprised if this was also a synthetic, but meh. Ooh, there's little like satin brocaded flowers along with the painted white flap. I could look at that for hours. Oh, wow, okay. I will have to do a burn test on this because I'm not sure if this is polyester or cotton or a blend of the two, probably a blend of the two, but it looks like another biggish piece. So this again is about 3 metres and I'm not even halfway through the bag. Okay, let's do this first. Okay. This is not me, but this is why we are here. This is why we are doing this thing. Okay, it's super thin. It feels like a cheaper craft cotton or a poly cotton. It'll make mock-ups. It's 3 metres. Again. I mean, it's not bad. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It's just, I would never have picked this. Such is the joys, huh? Okay, what have we got? That's more like it. Oh my gosh, it's got little ladybirds and birds on it and little sprigs of flowers. This is the same kind of weight. It's quite thin, probably cotton or poly cotton. Colour's so good. Just ever so slightly less than 3 metres. So every piece so far has been about 3 metres, give or take 10 or 20 centimetres or so. Okay, this I don't hate. Exact same kind of lightweight cotton, possibly poly cotton. Feels a bit smaller. That's a 2 metre length. Still entirely reasonable. And then I think this is our last. Yeah, this is our last one. Oh, it's stretch. Oh, goodness. Oh, this doesn't feel like a natural fibre. Okay. Oh, there's loads of it. And it's not even 4-way stretch. It's only 2-way. This is fine. I will admit the one thing I did not factor in was getting stretch fabric. I don't do anything that uses stretch fabric. But I guess that's about to change because I've got loads of this. 3 metres of stretch. I'm gonna go with polyester, it may even be spandex. So to recap, 3 metres of 2-way stretch, 2 metres of cotton, 3 metres of cotton, 3 more metres of cotton, 3 more metres, this stuff which is everything, and 3 metres of a satin lining material, which I think makes 3, 6, 9, maths, 12, 15, 17, 20 metres of fabric. Roughly 1 week later, the bundles from Pound a Metre also arrived. This is a much bigger box. From memory, what we've got in here is 10 meters of furnishing velvet, split across 4 kinds. 10 meters, maybe, of wool fabric, which is actually, I think, a wool poly blend. Whew. So with the velvet, I really wasn't clear whether I was getting the colors that were on the website. I have not. I am in fact really excited about the colors that I do have. So I picked the furnishing velvet rather than the dressmaking velvet because it's going to be 100% polyester either way. I was worried that if I picked the dressmaking velvet, I was going to get that horrible crushed stretch velvet that everyone makes their first cosplay out of, that stuff. Instead, I have this weird crushed russet brown furnishing velvet, but it's not stretch, which is a great help. Oh, wow. This is more the weight of a cotton velvet, and it's got this like pattern. I think this is deliberate. Again, very sturdy, good color. This I'm super excited about. Look at it, it's glorious. Oh, similar fabric to the brown one, slightly less of a crushed pattern, still enough going on that I think that is that might be a small flaw. That's a really cool color. Oh, I love it. And then, nice, another heavier weight, like not an exciting color, but it's a good hard wearing color. So all 4 of those, not stretch, 2 of this kind of equivalent weight to cotton velvet, and then 2 of a lighter, more flowy, but still furnishing weight velvet. That could have gone much worse. And then we have the wools and wool blends, which, oh my God, where do I even start? Like I said, I think these are all 50% wool, 50% poly. Oh boy, weird offcut. Yeah, this is just maybe a meter or even only half a meter of a bright pink boiled wool or wool Milton. I love everything about this. So that's very exciting. Next we've got, feels like a big piece. Am I confident about that? I am actually, yeah. This is a very nice suiting weight. Would not have assumed this had polyester in it. I'm sure I can do a burn test and confirm that, but maybe 3 meters. Measure, measure, measure. Yeah, a little over 3 meters. It would be great for vintage. It would be perfect for LARP kit. This I'm less psyched about. This feels like an upholstery weight fabric, and it's got this kind of tapestry over pattern of herringbone. I'm not sure this is a very large piece. Oh gosh, it might be a bit over a meter. I cannot estimate anything. It's 2 meters. I mean, the color's good. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to make with that. That is quite heavy. That one's a bit of a miss for me, but after 2 really, really good fabrics, I'm not super mad. Looking at this, I thought this was going to be a similar kind of fabric, but it's actually more like a coat weight. It is, again, I think 2 meters. Yeah, just under, like maybe 1 meter 90. Oh, this is nice. So this has a big woven herringbone in it. It feels lovely. It's a similar kind of weight. Again, it's a coat weight. It's a beautiful color. It is, yep, I've hold enough of these now. That's another like 2 meter length. I'm a sucker for a good green wool. It does look like it frays quite badly, so that'll be one thing to bear in mind, but ooh, I like that. And then this is our last piece, and this nice bias stripe in gray and black. It's a similar kind of weight again. What most people think of when they think of wool is the sort of stuff you can make a coat out of rather than the stuff you make a suit out of, which is actually quite fine. I would hazard this is another about 2 meters. About 2 meters. This one is super fuzzy. It's got a lovely drape. So what we got? We've got 2 meters, 4 meters, 6 meters, I can do maths, 8 meters. This one I said was more like 3, so that's 11. A couple of meters there. Forget how much I was actually supposed to get. I think it was 10, so that's well over and above what I was expecting. That's a really nice, varied selection of fabrics. Gonna make things. Hello friends, welcome to my floor. It's where I belong. So we have obtained a whole range of fabulous fabrics, and you're probably thinking, what on earth are we going to do with them? Well, let's dive in. There has been some discussion about this fabric. I shared it on some of my social media, and someone was like, I don't think that's a lining material. I think it's a satin-faced chiffon. I am undecided on that matter. However, I don't think that actually matters. I've had an idea for a little while now that I want to make something specifically to wear with. I have a couple of pieces from a company called Hysteria Machine. They make Accessories. We're going to go with accessories. I have a very specific idea in mind for a photo shoot I want to do with those. I think this is going to get included in that. I'd like to say I've spent a long time researching ancient Greek clothing, but I'll be honest, I have not spent a long time researching because it turns out ancient Greek clothing is a rectangle and 2 safety pins. So we are halfway there. This guy and this guy, I've had a look on their website. These are, I think, 100% cotton, if I've identified them correctly. My gut instinct is to go, well, I'll make a nice summer dress. I have too many summer dresses and I don't want to wear dresses all of the time. Definitely this one, maybe not this one. With the bugs and the birds, it kind of edges over the line from fun, trendy print to children's entertainer. I need to fortify and finally make a button-up shirt. I have one now that I really like the fit of. I need to take a pattern off it. I need to make a shirt. So those currently to me just look like suffering. I don't like this one. No, so this is going to be mock-ups, possibly lining. They weren't all going to be winners. Again, I just want to make a dress. Does anyone else get this where you're just like, okay, I could make a whole bunch of complicated things like button-up shirts or trousers, or I could just make a dress. Make a dress in like a day. Dresses take no time. This is a very lovely fabric. It's very loose. It has a lovely drape to it. I think it's got some viscose in it. I did check the website. I don't remember. I will probably make a dress by sheer inertia, but I will at least pretend to think of other things that I could make out of it. I could make, trying to think what else I actually wear. Don't think I want polka dotted trousers. Culottes? Maybe culottes. So the majority of the fabrics that have come out of the Dalston Mills bag, I'm like, that's everyday wear. I will make clothes that I will wear in day-to-day life. Most of them haven't immediately jumped out and screamed LARP kit to me, basically because they're prints and prints don't usually work for LARP kit. Having said that, okay, so I know that the sensible thing to do, I could make a dress out of this. I could make a dress out of this. I could make a blouse out of this. I could make any number of things out of this that I would be able to wear in day-to-day life, and yet what I really want to do is make LARP kit out of it. And what is worse, I want to make LARP kit for a character who I haven't played in 2 years because the system has ended. But it's her colours. I'm in 2 minds about this. Let me know if you think it's a bad idea to make something for day-to-day wear and regular washing out of a fabric that has basically raw edges everywhere. And or let me know of a convincing argument why this is too nice to just make LARP kit out of. But for my first ever LARP event, I did want to make a blue chiffon sarafan, which is a Central Asian going into Russia overdress. Not hugely dissimilar to a hangarock, a Viking apron dress. And I could finally do that. Just don't know whether I should. And then finally there's this stuff. It's not unpleasant. It's a very thin, kind of drapey, 2-way stretch. I'm not going to wear this day to day. I'm just not. I guess I can use it for a costume. Like, I suppose I could make some kind of ghost bride or vampire. Oh, no. Well then, moving on. So we're now into the pound-a-meter fabric stuff, which is mostly going to be LARP kit. Weirdly, this one is the one that I immediately had an idea for. Allow me to explain. I have never seen Outlander, probably will never see Outlander, and previously I have not remotely cared about Outlander. It has led to a whole bunch of people doing kind of amazing tartan or plaid 18th century kit, and I'm jealous and I want it. So my idea for this was something not dissimilar to an Italian gown. Closed front, fitted bodice, gathered skirt open in front. Nice fitted back, waist seam, none of the messing around that the English and French gowns have. We're going to do the most simple version, and I'm going to try and make it so it can be worn without stays underneath. The idea being that this will be something that I can wear day to day or for LARP kit. I'm very happy with that. Let's go through these 3. There's this one which is kind of stripy and it's very much a heavier dress weight. You could use it for a coat, that wouldn't be a problem. There's this green one with a woven chevron pattern, heavier dress weight. And then there's this crosshatch grey and white one, which is, the fabric is lighter, but it has a stiffer hand to it. So it's got more body, but less weight. Probably doesn't make any sense. So I had a couple of ideas for these guys. One idea was that I could make something not overly complicated, theoretically usable for both LARP and everyday. For that, I was looking at some vintage patterns. This one, just a long sleeve dress. Don't think I have enough fabric for it, unfortunately. Probably not. This one is like a beach cover-up style thing, basically indistinguishable from a robe. That's probably a little bit more challenging to wear day to day, I suspect. There's this guy, which is actually a night dress, but nobody knows. If you make it up in wool, it's clearly not a night dress. So that's one of the options. Another option, just make dresses. I've got this kind of interesting pinafore affair from, I think, the 1970s, or this guy, which is like a very loosely fitted sack dress, theoretically wearable for both LARP and regular times. Slightly more normal life than LARP, possibly. And then the other idea was, not enough people at LARP wear coats. I think a lot of people design their costumes and then go, oh crap, I'm also going to need a coat. No. Start by designing your coat. It's what you're going to be wearing most of the time. It's an important part of your costume. So I've got this pattern which has like a collarless duster thing, short or long. I think that could work really, really well. Or indeed, I probably don't have enough fabric for the long sleeved dress, but I could maybe combine two of them. Or I have this vintage dressing gown pattern, which they can't tell that it's supposed to be a dressing gown and not a wrap coat, especially if it's LARP kit. It's fine, you can use this. So those are the kind of ideas I've got for those three. The other possibility I briefly entertained is I have this book, which I very much enjoy, and there's a variety of early Tudor menswear in this. Let's talk about these velvets for a second. So I've got two stiffer, kind of heavyweight velvets, and then I've got two of these, I guess, crushed. I'll be honest, they look more wrinkled than crushed, but crushed I think is the direction they were going. I could do one of these like long sleeved dresses that I wasn't sure I had enough fabric for out of any of these. I could also have a look at some of the stuff out of this book. So there's a really nice simple doublet pattern that's kind of open at the front. Lace is closed over a shirt. Quite like to try that. They have this that they call a jacket, which is like a wrap front over thing with short sleeves. And then this, which they call a coat, which is the same basic idea, but with a center front closure and sleeve that's gathered at the top and fitted at the bottom. They all look pretty simple to construct. They're all potentially in the offing, and some of these fabrics might be the right ones for those, at least for a first go, before I get good at it and want to waste, you know, real wool and silk on them. The other thing I have been looking at is, of course, the incomparable Patterns of Fashion 3. There's a lot in here that I want to make. Oh boy, is there a lot. What I've been particularly looking at in the context of the velvets are the kind of loose hanging overgowns. Some of them have sleeves, some of them don't. There's examples of ones worn by men and women. If you have a amount of a very plush looking fabric like velvet, especially if it's a velvet like these that's 100% polyester and can look a bit shiny and cheap, you can counteract some of that by using it plentifully. So if you were to make a very kind of like tight fitting garment or a short skirt or whatever out of these fabrics, they might not look very luxurious, but if you have a 4-meter hem on this sleeveless gown that you're wearing over the top of other stuff, one, you don't have to worry about getting it dirty because these are polyester and you can just wash them, and two, it looks very extravagant and very luxurious. Patterns of Fashion 3 incidentally also has the idea that I had for this. I love this fabric. Look at the colour, it's great. There isn't a huge amount of it, so I don't know if I'm going to get sleeves or not, but there are a couple of patterns for sleeveless doublets / jerkins. I'm not confident on which one's which. I think that's where I want to go with this, especially since, because it is in the style of a boiled wool or a wool melton, you can cut this and it won't fray. You can do dagging on this. You can also do pinking on this. And I think that some combination of slashes, cutouts, what have yous is going to happen. And I'm quite excited about that. Which brings me to the elephant in the room, which is this thing. So the good news is it's not as heavy as I remembered it being. I would describe this texture as hotel carpet, and I don't really know, as a result, what I want to do with it. It's not like some of the other ones where it's got a nice reverse, so if I did anything I would probably have to line it. I'm wondering if a very simple coat might actually be the best choice for this one. It's the combination of the colour and the texture and the weight of it that I'm a little bit lost. This is where you guys come in. Can you think of a use for this fabric? If you can, please leave me a message in the comments down below. Who knows, you may see it happen. I may just have an existential crisis and make a cat bed out of it or something. Not that he'd sleep on it, the little bastard. So in summary, was it worth it? Probably. Okay, so I am for sure a weird edge case in that this way round, where you get a piece of fabric and then you figure out what you're going to do with it, is the way that I am used to working. I use mostly secondhand and reclaimed fabrics. I don't buy a lot of new off-the-bolt fabric. It's a very weird experience for me, and as you will no doubt see at some point, I tend to wildly misjudge how much fabric I'm going to need for a thing. But anyway, in general, I would say the fabrics I got from Dalston Mills were a bit higher quality. Certainly, if you are a more general sewist, I think that's probably the one you want to go for. They do a couple of different options. I'm interested to try, they do a plain fabric only option. I'd quite like to have a go at that at some point, just because that I think gives me slightly more options in terms of possibly have more things that I could use for LARP kit or costumes, as opposed to stuff that I'm looking at and going, that needs to be a everyday piece of clothing and can't not be modern. With the pound a meter stuff, overall I would say that the quality was lower, wasn't as fast, customer service wasn't quite as communicative, but I feel like the variety of fabrics I got, even though I was actually specializing more, was really, really cool. And I was able to specifically choose things that I knew were going to be suitable for the kinds of projects I wanted to do. Now, if you don't know what kind of projects you want to do, probably not the best option. If you're starting sewing, beginner sewist, and you're like, well, I think I maybe want to make clothes, maybe, don't really know, go for the Dalston Mills bag. It's going to be much better suited to that kind of thing. If you're like, yes, I would absolutely like some 50% wool out of which to make random LARP kit, I do feel like I got my money's worth. I think there was actually slightly more fabric than advertised. So anyway, I need to tidy my workroom so I can get on with sewing, so I guess we're going to wrap this up now. At the moment I'm working on two big projects. One is a series of videos about making kit for outdoor LARP games. Absolutely see some of these pieces of fabric showing up in that. Also, I am collecting a whole bunch of vintage fancy dress patterns, which I am going to make and release during the month of October. Don't actually know how many of those I'm going to get done at this point. It's going to depend on how exciting the rest of the year ends up being. Hello, welcome to the floor. I live here now. Doing everything out of order because I got sick. I'm still kind of sick, or at least suspected post-viral fatigue, whatever. Definitely aren't overexerting myself. However, I cannot blame this decision on being ill. Let me explain. I wanted to make a patchwork pride flag. That involves a lot of colours. I don't necessarily have a million fabric scraps in yellow or purple. Can do you blue and green and maybe red. Anything other than that, we're getting a little dicey. And then you've got the progress insert. I needed a lot of colours, and I could have bought a bunch of bits of fabric in a bunch of different colours, and that would probably have been fine, but also it was looking expensive. And then I went, some places sell remnant bundles. Maybe I'll just buy a remnant bundle and see what happens. Always read the description. I may have purchased more than I need. Okay, so vital statistics. This is from Pound a Meter, who I irrationally love in spite of the fact that they are priced according to what they are selling. Not a website you want to go to if you particularly want 100% silk and wool and all these fine things, but if you want trash, they will not charge you outrageous amounts for trash, which a lot of shops will. They're also, as it turns out, kind of local to me, so maybe I'll go in person one day. Anyway, originally their remnant bundles were 30 meters, which is more than enough, but they had doubled it. So it was 60 meters for £60. And I was like, it's probably more than I need, but yeah, okay. I actually paid £51 plus postage because I found a discount code on their Facebook page. They often have those around, keep an eye out. I did not fully read the description, which was buy two, get two free. Or I did, I was like, I'm only buying one, but because it was 60 meters, it was already two. This is over 120 meters of fabric because I bought other stuff as well. I don't know what to tell you, I'm a bad influence. Does anyone want a patchwork pride flag? Please live vicariously through my suffering. I guess I'm gonna my nemesis, the cuckoo clock. Let's just unpack it and see where we get. So bag number one is mainly organza. A bunch of them are this kind of like striated organza, which I'm sure I will insert close-ups of because I'm not silly. We've got a green, a pinky, peachy coral, a blue slate shimmer. This, which it's like shot red and gray, this dark gray, and you've got this brown and this gold, which are more standard crystal organzas. This red, which is more matte, pale blue, and then I think this is supposed to be white, or just off-white. It's also, hello, you're doing an investigate. Also in here there were 4 printed mesh. They're very thin, they're very lightweight, they're very flowy. There's this tropical print, which there isn't very much of. There's quite a big bit of this yellow. There's a similar kind of print in beiges on white, and then there's lots of this stuff, which is, I think it's a manufacturing error. I'm holding it the wrong way around. This obviously I think fell foul of a manufacturing error where it was supposed to be this checkerboard print and the printing's not gone the whole way, so you've just got this pink. It's fine by me, can use that for patchwork. Onwards to bag number 2. You'll notice I've stopped sitting cross-legged. It's because I find sitting cross-legged incredibly uncomfortable. Hashtag relatable content. I don't know. So I figured out what these random bits of paper that were in there were, and it's the measurement of each piece of fabric, which means one of these guys is like nearly 4 meters. Most of these are like a meter some, but there's like 62 meters between the two of these bags, which is pretty good. Anyway, this bag was heavier on what I would consider to be practical fabrics and also fancy fabrics. Let's start with the hideous, the obvious. This is immediately being quarantined because it's can glitter. Great. There's another piece of organza. There's a couple of pieces of this. It's like a loose knit fabric. I think I've got 2 pieces in white, or 1 piece in white and 1 piece in cream, unclear. And then this sort of pink stripy stuff. There's this kind of red marled jersey, which I seem to have 2 bits of. This is inside out, so you can't tell, but it's corduroy. There's another piece of organza, this sort of taffeta lining fabric. This is quite cute. I actually have some of this already. Some cute printed cotton. 2 different colors of this like ruched crinkle jersey, which is very lightweight. Some floral mesh. This sort of, it has a hand like a taffeta, but it feels like a suiting. This one feels kind of woolly. Black suiting. This is like a heavyweight cotton linen thing. This one is more of a dress fabric. This is another sort of cotton linen. 2 pieces of embroidered, probably curtain fabric. It's got a really cute embroidered edge and a little all over pattern, sort of broderie anglaise style. This sort of floral dress crepe. This, which I had been eyeing up anyway and couldn't find when I placed this order. It's like a floral patterned satin, and 3 different plaids. These 2 are more polyester taffeta feel, and then this one I think is cotton. There's loads of it. I wonder if there's enough to make trousers out of. So that is bundle number 2. Bag number 3 is heavy on the prints. And also it looks like we've got some really big bits in this one. There's like 3 or 4 pieces that are close to or over 3 meters. Not many that are under a meter, which is cool. I'm very out of breath. What have we got? A lot of prints. So we've got this very bold floral. We've got more of this white and beige, light knit meshy stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 florals in different colors. Got a cream, bluey green, a mint, a pink, pinky purple, more of a light blue, a gray or beige, and this is a lot. We've also got this red snakeskin, which is quite something. This grayish colored jersey with a floral motif on it. I'm not quite sure what to make of that. This stuff, which is, it's like a purple paisley print, but it's sort of faded, I think deliberately. Then this white boucle and some very cozy, this is almost like a corduroy, but it's much cuddlier. More of a fleece, really. Wonder if there's enough for trousers. Trousers on the mind right now, because I don't have any. Bag number 4, final bag. Oh, puss. You're covered in stuff, puss. You're gonna go straight down the middle. Yeah, go on. Don't settle. Gonna have a good sniff. Good sniff. The floor is not nice. I don't want to live here anymore. Final bag. Right, what have we got? We have got this sort of Hessian effect furnishing fabric, which is quite cool. This scrap of pink lining, which I think was actually just to hold it all together because it was tied around in a bow. May not be included. Just being haunted by this particular shade of day glow yellow. Another kind of chunky boucle, cuddly stuff, this time in oatmeal and black and white. It's cool. I like it. Purple zebra print, not so much of a fan. And some nice blue and pink floral print. My nemesis. This is kind of like a dress crepe. This is even more crepey feeling and has, it's sort of deep red / purple with a border, kind of cool. You've got 3 really heavily textured ones. So there's this, which is like a khaki color, which has got a stripe, but also a textured chevron. You've got this, which is a nice basic black and has got kind of a basket weave textured pattern to it. You've got this crinkly, crunchly seersucker-esque green, which is very green. Got some lace, which I'm always here for some lace, and it's a white lace as well. It's not awful. This herringbone feels a bit like a wool suiting, probably a poly or a poly blend. Some lilac lining fabric, pretty standard. A sort of brown pink dress crepe with like a border to it. Not totally sold on that one. 2 pieces of, I think it's called cotton terry, or it's the kind of cuddly feeling cotton. I hate it, but it's often for babies. So this one has stars, this one has little bears. This feels like a poly suiting, needs a wash. Another cuddly textured, is it a knit? It is a knit. This time in sort of a coral pink. Big bit of cuddly blush pink jersey and a really big bit of jersey with this sort of crown print on blue. Well, I'm fed up of being on the floor. This is quite uncomfortable and I very much need to have a break now. I think we'll regroup back in the workroom and talk about where we go from here. Welcome back to the workroom. If you can't tell from the haircut and the fact that I am no longer ill, it's been a while. I've never really seen the point of just being like, hey, here's a whole bunch of stuff that I bought. And I think the question anytime anyone posts a fabric haul is, well, what are you going to do with it? And I have a lot of stuff. We need to know what I'm going to do with it. So, obviously I'm going to start by saying this was more fabric than I was expecting, but also in larger pieces. Now, I do have a system for anything that's of like a usable size, but smaller than about a fat quarter, goes into one pile. Depending what it is, I'll use it for small projects, facings. If I've got lots of different printed cottons, I'll use them as a lining on something that has lots of small panels, that kind of thing. And then smaller than that, so actual scraps. I have a whole bunch of shoeboxes, which I arrange them by colour, and I use that to do patchwork with. I actually have a whole video on one of the styles of patchwork that I do, and that's kind of what I had in mind when I was like, I'm gonna get some fabric to make a pride flag, which is still happening. Hilariously, I still don't have a lot of purple. I do realise it's the point, but do the queers have to have all of the colours? More importantly, why do so many of the flags have yellow in them? No one likes yellow. Anyway, there's basically two kinds of sewists in the world, I think. The people who go, okay, I've got my pattern, this is what I want to make, let's go and buy the fabric for it. And then I think smaller subset of people who go, okay, I have the fabric, what can I make? However, if you are part of that first set of people who finds a pattern that they want to make and then goes and buys fabric for it, you will notice that you probably also buy fabric just because. And now you have a whole lot of fabric and you're like, when am I ever going to sew from my stash? There's never anything suitable for the thing that I wanted. We're going to talk about the second set of people and the second way of working, the one where you pick up a piece of fabric and go, what can I make from this? Not, oh gosh, there's nothing in my stash that matches the pattern I want to use. Basically, this is my way of tackling it. The first thing I look at is yardage. That's the single biggest factor that is going to determine what you can and can't make out of this piece of fabric. How much of it do you have? There's no hard and fast rule for you have this much fabric, you can make this thing. It is super dependent on a lot of factors. What I find helps is having a mental list or a physical list, you can write it down, some kind of set of benchmarks. This is a thing I make a lot of, this is how much fabric it takes. I'm about to name some heroically small quantities of fabric, okay? Benchmark for everyone out there, I am 5'7", I have a 31-inch chest. If the fabric lengths I'm describing sound tiny, that's why. If I want to make like a sleeveless top, that's 1/2 meter. Doesn't actually matter whether it's a shell tank top style top or something more like a corset, it's always about 1/2 meter. 2 meters, I can make a tunic. A little bit more than 2 meters, a long sleeve shirt, either a historical long sleeve shirt or a modern one. Circle skirt, somewhere between 1.5 meters and 3 meters, depends how long I want it to be. 2.5 meters is a pair of pajama pants. My Tudor kirtle pattern, if I want a full-length skirt with as much fullness as I usually want for it, that's 3.5 meters. I can be a bit flexible on that. Again, I know the bodice takes about 1/2 meter, and then it's how much fabric do I put into the skirt. I've got a couple where I've either made the skirt shorter or it's from a heavier fabric, so I've used 2 widths of the fabric, not 3. 3.5 meters for most fabrics is where I want to be for a kirtle. I can just fudge it a bit. A floor-length robe of some description is normally more like 4. And I've completely skipped over the 1 meter mark, which is, I have so many things you can make with 1 meter of fabric. So many things. That sounds like a video. Put a pin in that one. So that's where I start, is how much do I have? Okay, what kind of things can I make out of that amount of fabric? Depending on who you are, what kind of clothes you make, what size you are, your benchmarks are going to be different, but you are going to have benchmarks. Whether it's, I need this much fabric to make an 18th century petticoat, or whether it's I need this much fabric to make a button-up shirt, you get the idea. Always remember, of course, that you can combine fabrics. Party colour is a thing, and we should bring it back. Patchwork clothes are really trendy. Again, don't be afraid of Frankensteining together multiple pieces of roughly the same fabric if you've only got 1.5 meters of one fabric and 2 meters of another fabric. Well, they're the same weight and feel, that's a kirtle combined. Which brings me on to the next thing you look at. Let's talk about about some of the words that you can use to describe fabrics. First of all, easy one, stretch. Is it a woven fabric that has no stretch? Is it a woven fabric with mechanical stretch, which means that included in the fabric makeup there is spandex or elastane or something like that that causes the fabric to stretch even though it is not a knit? Or is it a knit, a jersey, a mesh, something that is produced in such a way that it already has stretch? Stretch or non-stretch is a major factor in deciding what you're going to make out of this piece of fabric. You can't make a t-shirt out of a woven fabric, and you probably shouldn't make a button-up shirt out of a stretch fabric, though I'm sure people do. Everyone is very scared of stretch fabrics, but I find they're not that bad, and you can actually make far more things out of them than people think you can. But whatever you're comfortable with. Then we need to talk about the weight of a fabric and the opacity of that fabric, which kind of go hand in hand. On one end of the spectrum, you can have very heavy. Heavy doesn't necessarily mean thick, although it often does. You can also get very heavy fabrics that are thinner. I'm thinking here of the difference between like a blanket weight wool, which is very thick and spongy. Trying not to get too far into the other fabric descriptors at this point. And then contrast that to something like a furnishing jacquard, which can be relatively thin, but is still extremely heavy. At the other end of the spectrum, you get very light fabrics, which are often also very sheer fabrics, so see-through. How see-through, again, varies. You can get sheer chiffons and organzas, which still are heavier than mostly opaque, very fine cottons and linens. They're still kind of see-through, but they're not as transparent as, say, for example, a mesh fabric that is entirely see-through, actually heavier weight-wise than a handkerchief linen. Then we need to talk about the feel and the finish of a piece of fabric. Is it smooth? Is it textured? Does it have a pile like velvet? Does it have a nap like brushed cotton? Is it smooth and shiny like satin? Is it slippery? Does it grip against itself? And this also kind of leans into one of the other words we can use when talking about fabric, which is the hand. Hand is a weird one. I think the easiest way to understand it is to think about the difference between organza and chiffon. These are two lightweight sheer fabrics. Organza has a very stiff hand. It holds its shape. If you scrunch it up, it poofs out. Chiffon has a very, very soft hand. It flows and drapes, and if you scrunch it up, it just disappears into nothing and continues to hang down in beautiful billowing curtains. If you make a skirt out of layers of organza, congratulations, you have a petticoat. If you make a skirt out of layers of chiffon, it will cling to you and drape, and you will look like a forest nymph. It doesn't really matter how much of each fabric you've used, that's how they will behave. But all fabrics have a hand, and it usually is somewhere from crisp, like organza, taffeta, twill, all the way through to a very soft hand, chiffon, many satins, not all of them. You get heavier satins with a firmer hand. Some of them are very drapey and fluid. Crepes, voile is somewhere in the middle. Quilting cotton has a pretty stiff hand. Something like cotton lawn doesn't so much. Some suitings are firmer and some are softer. In the same way that I think a lot of people say silk when what they mean is satin, and people say cottons are drapey and silk isn't. There's a lot of complexity in the way that we talk about fabric. Understanding that is genuinely helpful. Once you start understanding the different qualities that fabric can have, then you start understanding what fabrics are like each other and what fabrics are different. If you're learning to sew and you've picked up some patterns and your pattern says you can make this out of quilting cotton, taffeta, suiting, it's quite a common beginner sewer mistake to go, oh, I'll make it out of some old cotton sheets that are really well washed and very soft, or I'll make it out of chiffon, or I'll make it out of velvet. That pattern has offered you a bunch of thin, crisp fabrics. If you make it out of soft fabrics, it's not going to hold its shape in the same way. If you make it out of a thick, heavy fabric like velvet, it's not going to work as well. It's going to be bulky in weird places. But if you looked at something that said that it wanted quilting cotton, taffeta, suiting, that sort of thing, and went, okay, I want to make this in the see-through version, organza is the right choice for that, not chiffon. The final consideration with anything that you make is obviously the fiber content. Folks get real weird about fiber content. If you are taking the route of using fabrics you already have, or using fabrics that you find, or using fabrics that you acquire very cheaply in large and unknown quantities, getting picky about fiber content is That's not a luxury that you have. However, what fibers are appropriate for what things is something that you should think about. I'm not necessarily going to make a coat out of cotton because cotton is total garbage at retaining heat. Conversely, if I have a really nice fabric but it's very synthetic, I don't really want to make a top out of that because I get very uncomfortable if I'm sweating too much, and that's only really a torso problem for me. Waist down, completely fine. However, when you're getting random bits of fabric, finding out what fiber you have is a problem. There are better and more expansive videos on this, but brief overview of burn testing. The way you find out what kind of fiber you have is you set it on fire. Setting it on fire will give you one of 3 results. Result number 1, it melts. If your fabric melts and leaves a hard, what is called a bead, a lump behind and smells kind of awful, that's plastic. It is some form of synthetic. Probably polyester, not necessarily. Most synthetics will auto-extinguish, which means that you will set fire to them and they will melt into a hard lump and go out. A small number of synthetics, acetate, some acrylics, possibly a few more, do not self-extinguish and do instead burn extremely well. Those guys are pretty rare these days, except as it turns out in mass-produced Halloween costumes. One of the reasons it's a good idea to burn test your fabrics is to find out that you don't have any fire hazards on your hand. You probably don't. Most synthetics self-extinguish. Category number 2 is your protein fibers, so silk and wool. Silk and wool smell like burning hair. If you are unsure whether you have silk or wool, wool nearly always self-extinguishes. Silk does not. Silk burns really quite well. Silk likes to be on fire, and you'll get a sooty, ashy residue off the back of that. And then finally, you have the plant fibers, cotton, linen, rayon, which is a cellulose-based synthetic. There's a few other exotic ones, but be warned that many of the exotic plant-based fibers you will come across are just rayons, which are incredibly toxic to the environment. Bamboo fabric, not all it's cracked up to be. Personal bugbear of mine. Plant fibers smell like burning paper or burning wood. Basically the nice burning smell that everyone likes. They also burn pretty well. So there's this idea that if you are going anywhere near a fire, you should only be wearing natural materials. Not entirely sure where, no, that's a lie. I know where people have got that from, and it's from very cheap synthetics of years gone by, and again, unfortunately, children's Halloween costumes. As we've covered, most polyesters these days self-extinguish. Cotton and linen are heavily aerated plant matter, which in the fire-making world, we call tinder, and silk burns really well. Basically, when people say you should only wear natural materials near fires, they mean wool, and only wool, and also I question how much time they've actually spent around fires, because I don't know if you've noticed, virtually all outdoor technical wear is synthetic, and campers, hikers, and scouts were not routinely going up in flames. Also, quite a lot of people do not routinely hang out near open flames. Like that's quite a niche. That's quite unusual these days. Basically, the long and short of what I'm saying is that fire is a hazard. It does not matter what your costume is made of. Be aware of fire. It's kind of amazing to me that I have to say this explicitly on the internet. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. If you stumble too close to the campfire at your fest event, that's going to be bad for you no matter what. Sorry. If this is the path that you choose, you will get a lot of synthetics. It's fine. They're not perfect. They are plastic. I don't think we should be making more synthetics. I think we should be avoiding that at all costs, but there are synthetics in the world and I'm going to use them. They already exist. They're going into landfill otherwise. I like being warm and drying off quickly when it rains. You ever got a floor-length wool dress wet? That sucks. Anyway, off the back of that massive tangent, a lot of what I have are synthetics, if not almost all of them. Many of them are heavy knits or other stretch fabrics, which is a little bit outside of what I usually work with, so I'm gonna have to get creative. I think we can. I have a whole heaping lot of organza now. I have half an idea, but I need to let it percolate a little bit more because I have a lot of organza in a lot of different colors. I'm gonna have to experiment a lot to see if what I'm vaguely imagining will work, and I kind of don't want to tease it in case it really doesn't and it never sees the light of day. I love working with organza. It's one of my favorite fabrics. It always ends up looking magical and bougie, especially when you've got loads of it. Ultimately, Obviously, I have a YouTube channel. I'm going to be making lots of generic LARP kit to show off the kind of things you can do if you are just coming into LARPing and you're just getting into sewing, or maybe you sew a bit and LARPing is new, or maybe you LARP a bit and sewing is new. So for me, this has really worked out. I can definitely see why for many other people, 120 meters of random fabrics would be kind of overwhelming, especially since I think that's going to produce a lot of waste fabric after I've started making things. I do patchwork. That works for me. It's not going to work for everyone. You do have to think about what your workflow is and not hang on to bags and bags of fabric scraps just in case you need them one day. Take up patchwork or throw them away. If your fabric stash is not serving you, it shouldn't be there. The point of having fabric is to use it. If you're not using it, it's time for it to go. That's a whole other topic that we're not going to get into this time. Friends, reptiles, just some fictional characters, probably, I don't know. What is about to happen was entirely predictable. I decided that come January, I am not going to buy any more fabric until I have used fabric that I already own. Some number of meters. Details TBC. So of course you can guess exactly what I immediately did. First things first, and most importantly, Halloween stuff. I got this, which is a fleece duvet set. I'm gonna make a house coat out of it because I've wanted a ridiculous like 1930s style house coat for a while. Halloween fleece seemed like a good option for that. And I got these guys. This one is only a single, so it'll have to be something small, but it's an all over grey on one side, orange on the other Halloween pattern. This one's a double. It is little ghosts, but the lining is just polka dots, which I actually found vaguely disappointing. Like, if you're gonna do the two-tone thing, at least give me a print on both sides. Like, come on. And then this one is actually a king, which is mildly disappointing because it's, as you can see, cobwebs, which I was very excited about. And then when I got it, I realised it does in fact have spiders on it. I can't decide whether I hate that or not. We'll just have to see. However, that is not the main event. The main event... I'm gonna have to pick this up again. I have regrets. I think we actually go into the other end. Okay, no, this was a bad plan. Messed this up. Snip, snip, snips. There's another bag inside the bag. Okay. Shut that over there. Interfacing. I got some interfacing. That's not exciting. That is for a project. I got 6 meters of this. It's like sheer with a stripe. I'm looking forward to making a LARP kit out of that. Got a whole lot of this. It's muslin, so it's see-through, but it is a nice colour, and I also got it in this nice colour, and I also got it in green for secret reasons. I also got this absolutely horrible fabric in green for secret reasons. Oh, and this horrible fabric in green for secret reasons. I have a green project. Wow, this is kind of awful. Got a whole lot of this, which has the advantage of not being see-through, but also, I don't know. It spoke to me. It's not a very nice fabric, I'll give you that. Oh good, I was worried this was going to be like a really... I got like 6 meters of this. It's a cream polyester dupioni. I was worried it was going to look yellow. It's kind of like a peachy off-white. I can work with this. I was going to make a burgundian out of this, but I might have another project now, so that's cool. What? Oh, yes! I have so much of this. They were selling it as a whole roll, so I just bought a whole roll. It's chiffon, and it's got quite narrow. It is very narrow. That's okay. It's got butterflies on it. I might make, I don't know, practice run selkie dress? I don't know. I've got loads of it. It's got butterflies on it. It's a whole thing. Now, this... Oh, it's darker than I expected. Ooh, okay. This alleges to be 100% wool. I'll be the judge of that. Will I in fact be the judge of that right now? Yeah, sure, why not? It's a slightly darker colour than it looks on the website, which is not ideal. Yeah, that might be 100% wool. I got a lot of this, and my logic was, I'm going to try and dye it. Dyeing wool is hard, so, you know, adjust your expectations. But even if I use it as is, it's not a bad colour. Just put lots of trim on it. And then there was freebies, which this looks weird. This looks really weird. I got a seam ripper, which is great because I can't find mine right now. I'm going to find it as soon as I finish this now that I have another one. Couple of fat quarters. I guess that's fine. This, which is horrible. This is jersey, and not very nice jersey, but that sure is a thing. And this is also jersey, and in a terrible colour. Guess I know why they were free. Bet I've got loads of it. I will. I've got loads of it. Bet it's synthetic. I mean, that's poly cotton at best. They were free. If you want to see me make more bad decisions, follow along. Oh, this is a terrible idea. Hello friends. This week I just wanted to do something really light and fun and easy. God, there's so much cat hair on my... Ugh. Thursday. Where was I? Every video project recently seems to have been like an absolute marathon, so I'm just trying to take it a little bit easy for a moment. And wouldn't you know it, there was a half-price pattern sale on. So I'm not the biggest pattern person, by which I mean I don't keep up. I don't follow the trends. I don't usually buy a lot of patterns, which is weird because I do use a lot of commercial patterns. I can draft my own. That is a skill that I have. I also don't bother a lot of the time, and either that means making incredibly simple things that don't need patterns or using a commercial pattern and just sort of wiggling it a bit. Also, as I'm working on developing the channel, you know, for every person who's like, I don't understand patterns, I like freehanding it on the fabric and just sort of smushing it together, and every person who's like, I only scale things up from books of patterns taken from extant garments. There's the people in the middle for whom the commercial pattern is the be-all and end-all of their skill set, and like, let's not leave these guys out, because if you can make fantasy costumes from readily available commercial clothing, then it stands to reason you can make fantasy costumes out of readily available commercial patterns. But that's a future video problem. We're not going to worry about that just now. What we are going to do is live vicariously through my terrible spending habit. As I said before, I don't normally buy a lot of patterns, I don't keep up with the trends, and so what happened is I was looking through my pattern collection, which is moderate, and just discovering that it was really dated. I don't just mean that I have a lot of vintage patterns, which I have some vintage patterns, and then I have a bunch of costuming patterns, but the normal patterns, the normal everyday wear patterns, were either from the late 90s, early 2000s, when I started sewing, or they were from 5 to 10 years ago when I was more looking into... They're all a bit office casual, if you know what I mean. Slightly dressy office casual. That's just not my vibe anymore. It's not what I want to wear. And then McCall's patterns were half price, and I really like McCall's patterns. I think they work well for me. I don't think there's a best or a worst big pattern company. I think there's just a big pattern company that works the best for you as an individual, and for me, that's usually McCall's. But it turns out I only own their costume patterns, with the exception of one very old jacket pattern, which is my absolute default. I have used this and hacked it into so many different shapes. Jacket pattern. It's my go-to. So that seems like a pretty good basis for acquiring a lot more McCall's patterns. I like the way they fit. I like the way they work on me. I know what adaptations I usually need to make, because they don't fit out of the box. They never fit out of the box. But I know what I need to do to make them work for me. This is all a very long and rambling way of saying, would you like to look at some patterns? Because I bought a lot of patterns. I may have bought too many patterns and I don't know where I'm going to put them, but we won't worry about that just now. That is a future Ash problem. Speaking of where I'm going to put things, yeah, so part of the reason why I was looking to acquire a whole bunch more patterns that suit my current style and also the kind of videos I want to be making is because my fabric stash is out of hand. I don't have any more room. I want to buy more fabric and I can't because there's nowhere to put it. And the only way I'm going to deal with this is by sewing a bunch of stuff. I could, I guess, get rid of it, but no, I'm going to sew a bunch of stuff. And the quickest, I'm not even going to say easiest, the quickest way of me churning through a lot of fabric is to use commercially available patterns that are good enough, because then I can just go bam, 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 there's a thing, out of the room. That's the theory anyway. If you are also in the UK, by the time you watch this, the half price sale is probably over, but they come around every so often. The majority of these I ordered from Jcots. Jcots is my preferred seller for patterns for no other reason than I find their website really easy to browse. They aren't always the best on stock. So I think 4 of these I did order from Minerva Crafts, but I ordered them from Minerva Crafts after seeing them on the Jcots website, realizing they were out of stock in my size, going on the Minerva website and trying to find that specific pattern number, because while I love Minerva's selection, their website makes my skin crawl. I don't understand what it is. I cannot find anything and I hate browsing it. It's not even that it's optimized for mobile, because whenever I go on the mobile, it just wants to show me the blog. First world problems. So I've grouped these into themes, so you can live vicariously through whatever you're interested in. And just because it's fun, we're going to start with what I will loosely describe as occasion dresses, something a bit fancy. So first up we have M8038, which is an evening dress pattern. This one has got 2 sleeve options as well as a sleeveless option. In case you didn't already know, every pattern has a sleeveless option, you just don't add the sleeves. It also has the option of a train and a low back or backless cutout. Does the front neck have variations? No, it just looks like the front neck has variations. It's nice and simple, it's dramatic. I think I'm going to be able to do a bunch of stuff with this for LARP kit, but also a floor length kind of high necked dress with long sleeves will just live in my wardrobe. Quite fitted over the hips, which is not always what I'm going for, with a bit of like a subtle mermaid flare. I think that's going to be fun. The next one is M8141, and I'm really excited about this one because if you watched my epic about buying LARP kit on eBay, you will have seen one of my favorite dresses, which is a blousey satin. It's got an open back, it's got bishop sleeves with buttons, it's got a waistband, a high collar. It's just all exactly what I want, and this pattern is a pretty good dupe of that exact dress. The main difference this pattern has is that it is a raglan cut, so the seam for the shoulders goes up here. Raglan cuts traditionally are not good on me because I have a lot more distance between the top of my shoulder and the bottom of my arms than the average person does, and my shoulders are also very square. This does not work well in raglan cuts, but I'm willing to figure it out because it has all the other details I want. It has the high collar, the sash waist, the gathered front, the big blousey sleeves. It's got a couple of options. You can have short or long sleeves. You can also have it sleeveless, which because it's a raglan is like a halter neck. It's got the open back, which I do very much like. It also has the option of having a bow at the collar. Doesn't have a sash, but I can add that. So I'm super excited to play around with that one. The next one's a little bit wild. It's M8341, and it is this absolutely unhinged, asymmetrical, color blocked evening dress with ruching and slashes, and I can already tell that getting this to fit me is going to be a disaster, and I don't care because at some point someone is going to get back into running cyberpunk games the way they did in like 2018, 2019, and I will be ready. A lot of the times when I'm picking up patterns, I'm looking for something that I couldn't or wouldn't design for myself, and I think this very much fits that bill. And finally, in the occasion section, I've got M8348. It has a dress in it, which is this quite straightforward, strappy, 3-panel knit dress with some flare at the hem, quite tight over the body and the hips. But what I was really excited for with this pattern is the shrugs that it comes with. It comes with 3 different styles of bolero or shrug. I would describe this as a shrug because it pulls on like a jumper instead of being a jacket. There's a straightforward one with a high collar, there's a crossover wrap front, and then there's a really heavily gathered crossover wrap, which is the one that you can see the model wearing in the photo. I think these are really cool. I think I'm going to get a lot of wear out of those patterns, and I'm optimistic. Yeah, most of them only take 1 to 1.5 meters of fabric. I'm optimistic that I'll get to use those a lot with the weird stretch remnants that I seem to have so much of. So from the sublime to the ridiculous, the next section is pajamas. So let me explain my thinking. I think a good pajama pattern is the perfect starting place for your LARP costuming journey, because what you normally get is some kind of top, some kind of trouser, and some kind of robe, and that's basically exactly what you've got here. So I have M8443, which is a men's pajama pattern. This has the option for a simple nightshirt that can have short or long sleeves and a short or long hem, so it can be a top or it can be more of a nightshirt. It has a simple elasticated waist trouser pattern, which can either be shorts or long trousers. Every trouser pattern is a shorts pattern, you just have to cut them off. And then it has a dressing gown robe, which is super simple. It has no collar. It comes in 2 lengths with patch pockets. You can leave patch pockets off. You can change the length of the sleeves if you want. There will almost certainly be a video about turning this into a LARP costume. And then I also have M7875, which doesn't have a top in it, but it does have a very cool, more fitted dressing gown. Also some trousers. They've got some cool piping details on them. I'm mostly in this for the robes. I think the robes are really cool with the big shawl collar and the fitted waist and the 2 lengths, and they've got ties on them. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that, I can already tell. More dresses. This section I've decided to call dresses that will almost certainly become LARP kit, but also that I want to wear all the time. We're coming in strong with M8436, which is fairly simple stretch knit dress. It comes in 2 lengths. All dresses come in any length when they're patterns. You just shorten or lengthen them however you want. I will admit that initially the front sort of drape put me off, but looking at the line drawings on the back, it's just sort of a wrap that's attached in and then tied, and that's what it's giving this sort of gathered look across the front of the dress, is that it's a stretch material that's being pulled in one particular place. So I'm really interested to see what I can do with that, either by just leaving that off or incorporating it or changing around how those things are done. Mostly I really was drawn to the long sleeves and the wide open square neckline, which I think we can do some fun medieval adjacent things with that. This one's really fun. I'm looking forward to seeing what I can do with it. This next one's a little bit more straightforward. It's M8406. It is sort of an empire waist fitted dress with a loose blousey top with grown-on sleeves. I love a good grown-on sleeve. I also love crossover neckline that it's got. I love that it's blousey on top and then fitted through the waist. This is entirely my vibe. It's also not for knits, unlike half of the patterns that I've bought, so hopefully I will get a lot of use out of this one. This next one, oh man. So we're talking about dupes of clothes that I own and love. Again, if you have watched the epic searching for secondhand clothes to make fantasy costumes video, you will have seen my favorite tunic dresses in the world ever. They are stretch velvet, 3/4 length sleeves, high collar, A-line fit, super simple. Couple of things that I would rather were a little bit different, would rather they had either longer sleeves, potentially that they came in more colors. Well, this is how we've got M7407, which as far as I can tell is just that outfit. The sleeves come in 2 length options or sleeveless. It also comes in 2 lengths, so either a top or a dress, which is above knee on the model. It's for stretch fabric. It looks super simple. It's drapey, it's loose, I can now just make as many of those tunic dresses as I want. Speaking of tunic dresses, we have 8449. This one needs a little bit of zhuzhing. I don't love that it's a shirt dress. I just, in general, am not the biggest fan of that sort of turn down collar. However, when you're making your own shirt dresses, you can just not put that on. In fact, even one of the views has the option to just have the little stand collar, which I much prefer. Also the placket down the front, which only goes to about here. It has buttons on one of the views, but not on the others. I can maybe fuss it around and do lacing instead. It's got a little bit of gathering detail at the top. It's got a dropped shoulder. It's got short and long sleeve options and a sash, and I believe pockets. I think it also comes in a couple lengths. Basically, there's enough good things about this pattern that I'm happy wiggling the bits that I'm not as keen on. More stretch dresses. M8476. This one is super simple. Probably I could have patterned it myself, but can I be bothered? Especially in a knit? No. I'm gonna let someone else do 90% of the work for me and then I'll just wiggle it. This has a strapless option, which I will probably never use, but it also has front and back square neckline, which is very Kirtle-esque. or front straps and then like a racer back, which is a bit more modern. Although having said that, my Kirtles have a V-neck at back, and so I could probably just wiggle that and make it. In short, I have a lot of stretch fabric at the moment, and with this I think I can make a comfier alternative to my Tudor Kirtles that I wear as much as I can. But as I have discovered this month, a bit uncomfortable for lounging around the house in on account of the boning. Oh, has it got pockets? It has also got pockets. This is another one I probably could have patterned, but it would have taken me way longer. M7402, super simple, super drapey, also comes as a jumpsuit option. Okay, I just thought this was like dresses and tunics. Bunch of different lengths. Look like they can be knit or not, which is interesting. I'm mostly thinking of this for LARP tunics, I'll be honest, but those will turn into something that I can wear the rest of the time as well. And finally, M8138. I don't actually know what it is about this one that attracted me so much. It's the kind of thing that I would have gone absolutely nuts for 15 years ago. This was very my style 15 years ago. Potentially this was just one of those moments where I was wooed by the pattern envelope photographs, which are really cool. It's got a high collar, it's got sleeve length options, it's sort of a fit and flare one piece. It's made to be done in a knit, gone from having almost no knit patterns to having almost half of this haul is knit patterns. The exposed zip is less my thing, but I like that that's a feature because I can always, you know, replace it with some lacing. I like how the collar falls open. There's a bunch of things here that I think I can work with or around. It's not the most exciting pattern out of the bunch, but it's really fun. It's really cute. Next up, coats. Such a coat person, it's unreal. It took a lot to get me to stick to just 3. I whittled my way down to just 3. So the first one we have is M7848. This one had different photos when I bought it on the website than it has on the envelope. Not a problem, just a comment. It confused me a little bit at first because from this pattern envelope, it doesn't look quite as on brand as the pictures I was looking at when I decided to buy it. But the short version is it's a fit and flare coat pattern with a couple of collar options, one of which is having a hood. It's got pockets, it's got long sleeves, it's got a center front edge to edge closure, which they've done as a zip. I probably wouldn't do it as a zip. In particular, the floor length collarless option looked really good to me as like a LARP layering piece, especially if, as I suspect you can, I can make it single layer unlined. I'll have to fudge the instructions a bit because you always have to fudge the instructions a bit, but I think that'll work. Similar idea, but slightly different is M8156. So superficially, this is another fit and flare coat with a waist seam and long sleeves. However, this one is an armpit princess rather than a shoulder princess, so the seams go to here, not to here. It has more in the skirt. It has a button closure front, and it has the option of a V-neck or a high grown-on collar with darts. So there was just enough about this that was different and just enough that was the same that I thought that having both of these was worth it, and also that I might be able to cross-pollinate between the two. I think that could be fun. And then finally, I got M8438, which is a wrap coat pattern. This one has some really interesting cutting where the underside of the sleeves and the side panels of the coat are cut as one. Has it got pockets? I can't tell if it's got pockets. Maybe it doesn't have pockets. It also doesn't have any closures. It's designed to fully wrap in front with one button, but I might leave that off. You can also do a sleeveless version to just wear it as a vest, or if you are a LARPer, a surcoat. I think this is really fun. I think it's really cool. I think it's a really interesting cutting layout. I'm super looking forward to getting to grips with this one. The pattern version is lined, but I might fudge that if I want to make layering coats. Robes, if you will. More dresses. I swear I don't only wear dresses. So we have M8448, which is another one that was just weird enough that I thought I'd get it. It's for a knit again, and this time it has this diagonal color blocking thing going on. I also particularly like that the sleeves come in a sort of a belled option. That is in fact the only option. I respect that. I respect the pattern designer going, no, you'll have big sleeves or no sleeves. I really like what they've done with stripes going in different directions. I also really like the idea to do it in just one solid color and just have a very subtle asymmetrical detailing. This looks comfy. It looks cool. I'm excited to give it a go at least once. On the other side of things, this one is very dramatic. It is M7727, and it is this high-low flared shirt dress. The options are no sleeves or sleeves that you can roll up and attach with a little tab. I will not be doing that. I hate those sleeves, but long sleeve option is nice. It's got a waist sash. It's got a lot of fullness that comes from the hip, but also at the back. The center back is a pleat and it opens up from there. It's got a lot of drama. It's got a lot of fun. It's got a shirt collar, which as previously mentioned, I may just ignore. And I think it does come in 2 lengths. So if you want a ankle length in back or a higher in back option, they are available to you. This is the kind of thing that would take me a really long time to pattern out on my own. And so I'm very happy to just take someone else's work and fiddle with it a little bit. And then we have M8177, which I'll be honest, I'm mostly thinking is something that probably I will wear on a day-to-day basis rather than turn into LARP kit, but you never know. This is a princess seams shirt dress with buttons all the way down the front. It's got a belt and it's got either straps or there's 2 sleeve options with the elasticated shoulder and then a balloon sleeve that either comes to elbow or comes to wrist. Yeah, I think that strongly indicates that it's wrist. No, okay, the short sleeves actually look short, so I'm not sure how long the long sleeves come to. It's got a nice big long skirt with a lot of fullness. You can do a short option, but I like that there's the ankle length option as well. I think this is the kind of thing that I'll just wear. Yes, friends, we're still going. So next up we have tops. I only got myself 4 of these and most of them I plan to change quite heavily. So 7838 is a shirt pattern. I'm moderately indifferent on the shirt aspect of it. Things like the bust darts I will probably take out. I will almost certainly not do the fold down collar. I may not even do the buttons, but it has a really nice selection of sleeves. So it's got a short puffy sleeve that is a pointed puff. So it comes out instead of being more rounded one. It has what looks like a very subtle leg of mutton sleeve. It has sort of a dropped balloon sleeve, so the sleeve's tight to here, and then it balloons, and then it has a cuff. And it also has the same dropped sleeve, but this time with a flare instead of the balloon, which I think is just the same pattern piece, but not gathered down into a cuff. I really like the sleeve options with this, and I think that I'm going to be able to, if nothing else, make this into blouses to wear with my Lolita dresses. Next up we have 8146, a wrap front top with these really interesting sleeves with a lot of fullness built into them. You have a short and a long sleeve and then this interesting long one that has like ruching on the forearm as well. I don't know that I love the peplum, but we can figure that out. I don't mind the wrap front. I think wrap fronts can be very comfortable. We might have to fiddle the fit a little bit because they tend to assume that you've got a lot more going on the chest. So wrap fronts I find can gape a lot. I'm mostly in this for the sleeves. I'm excited by the sleeves. I'm happy to fiddle the rest of it. On the theme of sleeves, so M8181 is a sort of panelled vest. You can either have one that finishes at the waist, has a little ruffle on it, or has like a waistcoat bottom to it, a little bit of a basque, and then it's got 2 different sleeve options, either sort of the bishop sleeve with a little cuff or the bishop sleeve with a big long cuff with buttons on it. Again, I'm mostly in this for the sleeves, I'll be completely honest. I think the little sweetheart neckline and the interesting details is really fun, and I think maybe if I fiddled it a bit and instead of buttons put like laces, it'd be really cool as like a layering piece. I don't know, I'm gonna play around with that one a bit. I just thought it was very cute and I really liked the sleeves. And then again, flashing back to my last video, I have this tunic top that has a wrap over front that I think is really cool and really chic, and so M7247 is a knit top with a wrap over front that I think is really cool and really neat and really chic. It's got a couple of sleeve options, I think long, short, or possibly there's an in-between option. Shorten the sleeve to wherever you want it. You don't need to do anything special. You don't need to stick to, these are guidelines, they're not laws. And it has the option for either a straight or a sort of swooping crossover front, which I think is really cool. I think that potentially this could be something that if I can make it work for me, well, I will wear a lot because I really like that one top I already have, and now I have a pattern to make a bunch more tops similar to it. top I have isn't stretch, but that's fine. And then I've got a couple of skirts and a couple of trousers. I tend not to buy skirt patterns unless they're doing something really interesting, because most skirts are just rectangles, but these ones are doing something kind of interesting. So this is M8453, which has this really cool shaped yoke and then like a handkerchief hem, with the option of the handkerchief hem feeding into a lower tier that has a straight hem or a train. So it can be everything from like a fun party skirt to a very formal evening skirt, and I think that's super cool. I love the detailing of it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what these pattern pieces look like, because again, this would have taken me a really long time to pattern out myself, and I can just buy it. I think this is something that I will potentially make for myself, but also for LARP kit, and if I really like it, I could make it a whole bunch of times and change small things about it and have a bunch of skirts that don't look very similar. The other skirt pattern, I cheated a bit with this one, and you'll see why I said I cheated a bit. So this skirt pattern has a bunch of panels and top stitching, but it's also got, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is M8480, and it has these sort of shaped hip gauze, and you can have a short version, a long version, or a version that is like a high-low finish. I like that the high-low waterfall skirt is coming back into fashion, incidentally. I lived through it the first time, and yes, they're kind of a pain in the neck, but you know what? I don't care. They look elegant and lovely. The skirt has a fly front, which I don't know if I like or not, but it also has pockets, which I do. Yeah, inset pockets in the front and then patch pockets on the back. So I think this would be really cool in like a denim to give the sort of jean skirt effect, because I think that's very much what it's going for. And then trousers. So I've got M7131, which is just wide-legged trousers. You can have it in at least 4 different lengths, and it also includes the instructions to do it with a contrast sheer overlay. It's got pockets, and it's got a waistband that is fitted in front and elasticated in back, all of which are things that I would find really annoying to pattern out, given that my second to last intact pair of trousers ripped across the knee at the Mountain Goats concert the other night. I need some, and I'm open to maybe shorts. Not historically been open to shorts, but I feel like maybe that could be in my future. And finally, for the trousers, I've got M8408, which is also a wide-legged trouser, but this time it's got a fitted waist with a fly front and this really cool sort of radial color blocking seam detail. You can again make it in long trousers or shorts. It has again got pockets front and back. This one I just thought was really cool, and given my problems with trousers, I decided to pick this up rather than try and pattern it out. Time will tell if this has been the correct option, but it looks fun, and it looks like potentially, because it is interesting, we could maybe make that work for LARP kit, but I do think the other one's going to be more suitable for LARP kit. I think I could make this one work. It's definitely going to be suitable for me on a day-to-day basis, right? Turns out, I didn't know this, turns out McCall's have a subsidiary called Know Me, which was started by Mimi G, who I know had done patterns for them before. I missed this happening, but each one seems to be done by a different independent designer, and it's really cool. They're all really cool. A lot of them are not my style, but I think it's really awesome that we've got some more up-to-date patterns hitting the sewist market, because while I love commercial patterns, let's be honest, New Look are still selling some of the patterns that I bought in the 2000s that were not new. You shouldn't be keeping things in print until they come back into fashion. I don't think that's how that should work. But anyway, I grabbed 4 patterns out of the Know Me section for 4 very different reasons. So first up, I've got ME2026. This is a bit similar to another top that I got earlier, but it has enough different things going on that I wanted this one as well, and also because I have no self-control. So it's a shirt dress with a stretch knit tank dress to go underneath. I will admit I wanted the tank dress because I want tank tops. I want to make my own tank tops. I wear the same 2 or 3 tank tops over and over and over again, and they are dying. So I did actually want that part of the pattern, but obviously the real star here is the shirt dress. It's got some really cool cutting with wide sleeves, geometric yoke in front. It's got the buttons down the front. I love the buttons down the front, but for this I think it works. Little stand collar, which I love. This contrast panel at the bottom, which is more ruffled in the back and more straight in the front. I really want to see how that's patterned. I also love how it's styled on the front of the envelope, where it's the mixed sheer and solids over the knit tank dress. I think that's just really cool. I am anticipating that this might be an interesting fit on me, because I find that anything that's been made assuming a curvier model, so the Angela Clayton patterns, I really struggle with because they are usually way too big of the chest for me. And the Yaya Han ones as well are mad curvy, and so I have to do a lot of pattern alterations. This might turn out to be a bit of a struggle because it's not only defaulting to a curvier model, but it's also loose fit body skimming, which is really hard to fit right. When you need it to fit tightly, it's easy. You just squeeze it in, right? But when it's supposed to fit loose, that's hard. I don't mind though. I'm excited to give it a go. I think this is really cool. I think this is the kind of thing that I would like to wear on a day-to-day basis, because I'm very fond of the big loose fitting, just throw it on dresses for at home. And right now I currently mostly wear medieval ones. This next one is ME2076, and this is absolutely going into the one day someone will run cyberpunk games again. But also I think I want to try making this just for me to wear around the house. Oh, it's not knit. I just assumed it was knit, but it's not. And it doesn't have a zip in it. Very interesting. Oh, this might really be a wear around the house dress. Ooh. Anyway, it's got like an A-line top with an asymmetric gathered bottom. But when I say asymmetric, the asymmetric line is straight across the front and wraps all the way around to the back. So at the back, the two gathered sections don't meet up. I can see how that would drive some people mental, but I think it looks really cool. And you can wear it reversed. So you can wear it with that mismatched detail in the front. I think I would probably at home always wear it with the slash front in front, probably. But I can absolutely see how the other way around would look really, really cool, especially at like a cyberpunk game. So that's another one that I'm just really excited about. This next one is a little bit more obvious that I would go for this. This is ME2046. It's got some trousers in it, which are fine. They're sort of bell-bottomed, which is not my favorite cut on me, but it's got these, I think there's more of a tunic length and then more of a full length dress with the option to have them open at the sides all the way up to the waist. I love tops like this. I absolutely love them because they are tops, but also there's something very like cool and fantasy-esque about it. You can wear them over other skirts, you can wear them over trousers, you can, you can hike up the front if you want. It carries some of that tabard surcoat energy into your shirt, if that makes sense. I'm gonna make so many of these for LARP kit. That's basically where I'm going for this. I'm gonna make so many of these for LARP kit. I love this style. I'm really excited to get in on it, and it's stretched. They're going to be really comfy. And then on the other side of things, this one is not me at all, except it kind of is. This is ME2027, and look, I am not about the jumpsuit life. I made myself that little pair of overalls for my holiday last year, and I do wear them sometimes, but I don't like them. I don't like wearing them. I don't like having to take the whole thing off every time I need to go to the bathroom. I'm not about that. Also, it's got buttons down the front. Also, it's got a shirt collar, and it's a very dramatic shirt collar, and it doesn't look like it has a collar stand. It looks like that is the whole collar. However, that color blocking is incredible. I think I am going to be attempting to turn this into a dress. And I realize that that's probably something I could have just done on my own, but it's not my idea, and I kind of want the designer to get credit for the fact that they came up with this. The red, white, and black one in particular is just so cool and so my thing. My partner and I, tiny story time, when we were house hunting, my partner and I kept showing up in what we'd worn to work, and because of the kind of people we were, it meant we were showing up head to toe black, white, and red. I was always in knee-high black boots. He was almost always in like a white shirt with his sleeves rolled up and sunglasses, and we used to joke that we were the MCRN publicity department showing up to house viewings. All of which is to say, I really like this color blocking. And now for the final category. I know some of you are going to be going, how many more has he got? So I am not a big vintage reproduction pattern person. I'm extremely really lucky in being a tiny human that vintage patterns in my size come up, but also a lot of the vintage patterns I own are not really my style anymore, and also a lot of vintage patterns that are desirable, so the ones that get reproduced, are really not my style. I'm not really at all interested in the like 40s and 50s vintage patterns. They're not my thing. Absolutely no shade to you if they are. That's not my style. I know it's many people's style and I understand why that's the patterns they choose to reproduce. I just don't want those. However, McCall's have started doing something that I think is incredibly clever and that I am all about, which we will get onto in just a second, because first of all I have to lead in with, I know a lot of people don't like the 70s, but I frickin' love the 70s. So we have M8465, which is a 70s tunic dress and shorts or trousers. I have a bunch of 70s patterns like this. So many so, in fact, that I probably didn't need to buy this. It looks very similar to many actual vintage ones that I have, but I just like, in case there's any missing pieces or anything, to have an additional reference point. The tunic and trousers is very my jam, and I like that they are subtly flared. Not very flared, just a little bit flared. I do hate that little collar piece though. I will change that, absolutely. When I make this, I will do something about that weird little collar piece. The sleeves are also just really cute. I really like these, okay? I really like them. This is so gonna topple over any second. The other 70s one I've got is this one, M8431. Now you will remember when we were looking at the skirts that I said that the one with the shaped side panels was, I was cheating a bit with that one. It's because I did also get this. This also has that sort of shaped panel in the front. However, the construction is a bit different. For example, it doesn't have them in the back, and it doesn't have the same volume in those side panels that the skirt pattern I got did. It also comes with this really cute cardigan, and it turns out I wear a lot of cardigans. I haven't made a lot of cardigans, so that feels like something that I would maybe want in my life. So I had found this pattern and I knew I wanted this pattern, and I was like, oh, it's a shame. That's an interesting skirt detail, but I wish they'd done more with it. And then I saw the other skirt pattern and went, oh, well, clearly I need both. And then these four, I told you that I think McCall has done something incredibly smart, incredibly clever, incredibly well thought through with some of their vintage reproduction patterns, because you see, I 100% agree with Stephanie Canada that Simplicity should re-release the Gunny Sacks patterns. That is the only thing anyone wants, is the Gunny Sacks patterns from the 70s and 80s. McCall's don't have the license for Gunny Sacks. They have the license for Laura Ashley. So, some of them, admittedly, not really my thing, kind of awful. I did get M8314, which is a blouse and pinafore. These loose cut pinafores with just the gathered front and back and the massive pockets, 100% the kind of thing that I will just wear around the house all of the time. I'm really into things that basically don't fit or fit like sacks at the moment. I just want to be comfy. And then it does come with the blouse pattern as well, which has a short and long sleeved option and little ruffles on the collar. And will I wear these day to day? No. Will I wear them in Lolita? Yes. Oh, it's got little pin tucks at the front of the shirt as well. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. I will make those, just not for everyday wear. Then we have M8306, which is a little bodice pattern with then a gathered skirt and a petticoat with just a ruffle on the bottom. I wouldn't normally buy this. I can draft this. I can draft skirts, and I could probably draft the bodice as well. I didn't need this one, but I kind of wanted this one. That little top I think is going to be super cute. Again, I think I might make some for my Lolita fashion wardrobe. I think that's the kind of thing that would look really cute layered on top of stuff. Also, I will use these skirt patterns now that they exist. I'm not gonna ignore them. This one was maybe excessive. I want McCalls to know that they should reproduce more Laura Ashley patterns. Give us the wedding dresses. That's what we really want. Give us the wedding dresses. This is very my jam and not very many other people's. M8430. This is a vintage Laura Ashley 90s 1970s nightgown and robe pattern. You know me, I love the 70s. I love a pajama pattern. I love the pin tuck details on the sleeves. I love the empire waist. I look forward to probably trying to make these work as fake Regency, given that there's going to be a lot of that in my future. Oh, they really would, now that I think about it. Casual reminder that the only difference between a pajama or night dress pattern and a daywear pattern is what fabric you make it out of. You could make this into a sundress. I probably will. And finally, we have got M8464, which is what I think of as the very quintessential Laura Ashley princess-themed sundress. I actually have a dress very similar to this. It doesn't fit me anymore. And also, because I was a feckless teenager, I shortened it to above knee, and I wish I had not done that. Not that it fits me anyway. I don't know how I feel about the jacket pattern. I don't know if I'll make that or not, but the sundress, 100%, I think that is super cute. It's got big pockets. I'm gonna have to refit it, but I find refitting a princess seam is not actually that hard, at least not for me, because I'm just chopping bits off. So there we are. I have bought 37 new patterns. At this point, I was going to very enthusiastically tell you about how I'm about to launch into making lots of things from these. Yeah, no, I've got 2 LARPs in July. I have a project I need to get done in June, and then in August, I'm going to Worldcon. So if you're also going to Worldcon in Glasgow in 2024, come say hi. I have no idea what I'm going to be wearing yet, but I'm going to be wearing something, you know, never pass up an opportunity to get into costume. I am, however, really excited to be expanding my pattern collection into stuff that fits with my current style a lot better than the things that I already own, most of which I bought between 5 and 20 years ago. Everyone's style evolves over time, and I think it's really cool to not get stuck into, well, you know, I have all of these office casual, slightly vintage styled stuff that I should just make, and maybe I'll be able to find something out of those that I can still use, but in general, it's fine. We'll just move on. Maybe one day I'll take you guys on a tour of my pattern collection. I don't know, is that a thing that you'd like? I generally feel like unless I'm imparting information or showing you a thing that I made, it's not really that interesting, but then I watch a million videos of people just organizing their yarn stash, so I don't know why I think that people wouldn't watch that. It'd be a nice low stakes, low stress video. Speaking of nice low stakes, low stress videos, if you'd like to see how I store all of my patterns, which yes, I'm going to have to do to all of these in the next few days, but it's fine, we'll live with that. I have a whole video about that. It's a really easy system that works really well for me, so absolutely check that out. Hello friends! You know, I want to say this is all the fabric I own, but that's a lie. There's more. There's a big bolt of fake fur right there. There's another bag there. There's an IKEA bag right there out of shot that I just can't be bothered to move. There's the bag of scraps left over from making Hoa's coat. There's the big bag of scraps next door left over from the 2-week run up to the Red Genesis finale. There's a big pile of clothes that I am going to cut up and refashion. There's probably more. There's probably more lurking somewhere in this house. This is going to be 2 videos. The first video is going to be the short, useful one, and the second video is going to be the long, rambling, kind of unhelpful one. In the first video, I'm going to talk about why this is a problem and what we do about it. And in the second video, I'm literally going to sit and go through the pile and talk about all the stuff in here. Gonna be honest, I'm slightly dreading that, which is a good indication as to why the first video, why this is a problem is very much needed. I imagine a lot of people are looking at this person-sized heap of raw materials and going, I don't see that this is a problem. For context, I have owned some of these pieces of fabric for over 13 years. And I've never made anything with them. I've moved house 9 times in those 13 years, and I've never done anything with them. I started out sewing for dolls, which I did for several years. Then I got into cosplay, which I also did for several years. Then I got into historical costume, which I also did for several years. And then over the last 3 or 4 years, I've been doing LARP. And in all of that time, there are pieces of fabric in here that I have never used. Not only that, I am 100% certain there are pieces of fabric in here that I have forgotten I ever bought. All in all, this pile probably represents thousands of pounds worth of investment that is now wasted because it's never become anything. This is not good. It's very popular and fashionable in crafting circles to act like buying more supplies and stockpiling them is a good thing, that having a big stash is good, that for whatever reason this state of affairs is not only positive but desirable. I just strongly disagree. The point of a stash is supposed to be that when you need to make a project at short notice, you have stuff on hand to do it. Equally, you can build stuff up as you're planning ahead, and thus you have the materials for the 3 or 4 next projects ready to go. This is something that really paid off for me in the short period of time just gone. I had about 2 weeks to make all of my kit for the Regenesis finale, and I had 0 budget. Because of all of the stuff that I had accumulated, I could do that. I had just enough stuff lying around in the right colours, in the right lengths, that I could make 5 outfits. And as you can see, that has not even put a dent into this stuff. But that also comes at a cost. That cost is the space it takes up in my life, the space it takes up in my brain, the actual money that I have sunk into all of this, which, let's be honest, I am never getting back. There was a point during that 2-week Regenesis rush where I was pretty certain that I couldn't make one of the outfits that I'd envisioned because there just wasn't any fabric suitable. I had originally made this character a blue brocade coat. I wanted to make the same coat but in a dark navy or black patterned fabric. I didn't have any black or navy patterned fabric in a big enough quantity to make a full-length coat, therefore there's no way it could possibly happen. And then I found this stuff, and on the one hand, hurrah, problem solved. I had 5 meters of a black wool check with reflective gold stripes. It was perfect. I had more than enough to make the thing. The coat looked amazing. Life was good. But here's the flip side of this. I bought this fabric less than a year ago, and I'd forgotten that it existed. This fabric wasn't in a box, it wasn't at the bottom of a pile, it was in amongst a whole bunch of folded cuts of fabric that I'd had floating around for about a year. I had been moving this pile of fabric on and off boxes for almost a year, looking for other things, hunting out other stuff. I had passed this fabric over so many times because I had forgotten it existed. I almost didn't make that coat because I no longer remembered what I own. At the point that you don't remember what you own, you can't use it, you can't appreciate it, it's dead to you. I had a pretty significant turning point a few years ago where I sat and looked at all of the stuff that I'd accumulated, and yes, at one point there was more. Spoilers, this next bit's really grim. I suddenly had a vision of my friends and family having to go through this after I'd died. And the only thing I could think was of people opening these boxes and going, how incredibly sad they never used this stuff. It's even falling on me now. So this is where I'm at. This whole thing, this is not good. This is not happy making. This is at best stuff I've forgotten, and at worst stuff that is deeply tragic. And it's just weighing me down, right? There is no point in me having all this stuff. Anyway, the subject of this video is going to be, what do you do? What do you do with all this stuff? I'm going to talk about how I'm going to decide what to keep and what to get rid of, what getting rid of fabric looks like and the choices that you make along those lines. I'm also going to talk about what I'm going to do going forwards, both in terms of practicalities, so storage, but also in a more abstract sense, how I'm going to change my buying and acquiring habits going forwards, how you can approach buying fabric in a way that is healthy and practical. Because the big thing no one ever really wants to talk about this is that this is not healthy. This is hoarding. And being able to recognize that and move on from it is a big deal. This is the part of the video where I alienate 50% of my audience, because we're going to talk about Marie Kondo. I'm not going to explain Marie Kondo for the 16th billionth time, because I assume that if you haven't heard about it, you are capable of looking that up. What I am going to say is that the art of tidying up was a big deal for me. It framed the discussion of owning stuff in a way that pointed out how incredibly unhealthy the way that I was doing it currently was, and offered a really positive way to move forward. The whole point is that you don't worry about what you're getting rid of. You concentrate on what you actually like and what makes you happy. And this is the big problem with a lot of this stuff here, is that if I've forgotten it exists, if I no longer want to make the project that I bought it for, if I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, that's not making me happy. It is in fact doing the opposite of that. My takeaway from all of Marie Kondo's work is that you don't need to own things that you don't need or have strong feelings about. I don't need 12 boxes of fabric, so I should only be keeping the ones that I have strong feelings about, the ones that I pick up and like. I am really excited to work with this. There was an incredible project idea that I had that I really want to do. I can absolutely see myself making some generic LARP kit out of this that's going to be really, really useful. I can see myself making clothes for myself that I'm going to wear all the time. If you're picking stuff up and going, this is beautiful, but I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, why are you keeping that in your life? It's just going to take up space. And if it helps to think about it this way, getting rid of all the stuff that you're not excited about means you can then go out and buy stuff that you are excited about, if that's the kind of situation that you're in. So, first pass is to go through literally everything here, decide whether or not it's going to stay. Remember I said there was going to be 2 videos? The second video is going to be basically just me doing that. I have no idea how long this thing is going to end up being, probably horrific, but my guilty secret is that I really enjoy watching people go through their fabric stashes and talk about stuff, so I'm gonna do it, and you don't have to watch that one if you don't want to. For example, this is what I have left over from that Regenesis project. There's quite a bit of it. I loved working with it. It's really nice. It's wool. It's quite smart. Not only really enjoy it and now have really good associations with this fabric, but I think that I could make myself a skirt or maybe even a dress. Small dress, but a dress that I could wear day to day. That's very easy. I'm going to hang on to it, and I have a specific project in mind. That one stays. This packet here is some stuff I bought at the beginning of the year. It's silk satin. It was bought with a specific character in mind. I'm confident that I'm going to keep playing that character long enough to use these in their kit, and if not, big cuts of silk satin are never going to go amiss. I will find something to do with them. They're in nice, good, dark colours that I wear a lot of. Worst case scenario, I'll make something for myself out of them. So again, nice and practical. They can stay. Random piece of baby blue pleather. I was about to say, why do I even have this? I can tell you why I have this. When I was 19, I didn't have a doll carry bag yet, so I bought this and lined it with felt weight interfacing and made a carrying bag for fancy dolls so I could take them to conventions. It was a terrible carry bag, which is why I stopped using it and took it apart and saved the fabric. Realistically, am I ever going to use some randomly shaped bits of baby blue pleather? Probably not. Is there any kind of useful modern day clothes, generic LARP kit, random household items that I could make from this that I would enjoy and would be useful? I'm drawing a blank. I've cut a chunk out of it, so at some point I had a use for something, and I'm willing to bet it was just reinforcing another piece of kit. Do I have nice memories of it? Kind of. Does it need to stay in my life? Nah. To this I say thank you and goodbye. That is basically what I'm going to have to do for every single thing here. Every box, every bag, everything. Go through every piece of fabric one by one. I do think it's worth actually following through and doing the thing where you hold every single thing in your hands and properly think about it. If you find yourself in the position where you like something, you aren't sure if you'd ever use it, you aren't really excited by it, interested in it, it just seems like a thing that you should keep because it might be useful, put those in their own pile to go back to, because once you know how big that pile of random bits of cotton that you could use as mock-up material, if it turns out that you have 40 meters of random cotton to use as mock-up material, you don't need all of that. You should probably get rid of some of it. So that is step one. Does it stay? Step two is then figuring out what you do with the two piles that you've made, the stuff that is staying and the stuff that is not. We're going to talk about the stuff that is staying first. You've got fabrics that you love, that you're excited to use. You're going to need to store those somehow. The automatic reaction is like, oh yes, we'll do something like this. We'll keep everything in plastic totes or something where it's safe and protected, and no. Don't do that. These boxes seemed like a really, really good idea at the time, and having lived with some of them for 10 years, these are terrible. This is an awful, awful idea. One, stuff gets lost in there. Because they're see-through, you think that you can see everything that's in them. You just can't. Two, you have to stack them, so the ones in the top will get gone into a lot, and the ones that are at the bottom, if you have enough fabric, won't. Number three, people really recommend these on the idea that you can keep like clothes moths out and protect your fabric from sun damage. As I said, after nearly 10 years of using them, those are both lies. I have had fabric moths inside these boxes. They don't seal properly, and I'm not convinced that the fabric's got any less sun damage than they would have if they'd been just stored in a shady place anyway. And if I'm completely honest, you shouldn't have fabric long enough that it gets sun damaged from being in storage. I have some details to work out still. I'm planning on converting a lot of the craft room, which is currently mostly boxes and nonsense, into IKEA Kallax units, the very simple square units that you can slot boxes or drawers or whatever into. And at that point, the remaining fabric will get probably wound onto cardboard bolts and stacked up in those spaces so that I can see at a glance everything that I have. As a tangent, if you've ever seen Adam Savage's workshop tour, he has all of his tools and all of his supplies out in the open where you can see them. So it's a concept called first order retrievability. That is absolutely what I want to do, certainly for my tools, but also for the fabric. I need to be able to see at a glance what I've got. So when I'm ready to start a new project, I immediately know whether I have the fabric already and I'm not buying stuff, having forgotten about things already in my stash, or duplicating things I already could have used. Then there's what you do with the stuff that you don't want anymore and that you don't want to keep. It's probably a good idea to research what your options are. Depending on your area and what's available to you, you might have slightly different priorities than from what I'm doing. At the bottom of the pile, in general, I would say be very cautious about throwing things away. Natural fibers like cotton, silk, wool eventually, and I think even rayon will break down over time. However, polyesters and nylons and other synthetic materials, they are basically plastic, which means that they are here for good. If you bury them in the ground, they will still be here hundreds of years from now. Fun fact, every time you wash polyester clothing, tiny microplastics end up in the water supply. And yet, everyone hates glitter. And not that. In the area that I live, general waste doesn't go into landfill, they incinerate it for electricity. I've done some research into how the plants work, and obviously because they're breaking down a lot of toxic stuff, their air filtering is quite good and the emissions off that are pretty low. So worst case scenario, if I do end up throwing stuff away that would otherwise go into landfill, I'm okay with that, but I'd rather stuff went to a place where they were used. If you have a charity shop or thrift shop that regularly stocks fabric, that's probably a good place to donate stuff to. A lot of charity shops don't know what to do with it and won't stock it for sale. So even though you've donated it, it may still end up in landfill or being sent overseas further down the line. Believe it or not, just because you donate something to a charity shop doesn't mean that it's going to then get sold in a charity shop. These things are not always terribly transparent, and I think it's important to do your research on what actually happens. In particular, if you don't have nice, large, unused pieces of useful fabric, you should probably assume that that doesn't have any resale value and therefore might end up in landfill, in which case it's probably better that you make that call based on the options that you have. If you are a LARPer or know LARPers or are otherwise associated with other people who do crafts, you'll probably find that your friends are very keen to take things off your hands. If you're putting all the effort of getting your life in order and getting rid of all of your garbage, don't get rid of it by making it other people's problems. A lot of people will feel obligated to keep gifts that they have been given, even if they're not actually going to use it. Concentrate on your friends who are learning how to sew and will use anything that you can get, your friends who are students or otherwise may not be able to buy their own fabric, and then let people choose what they want to take, because then it's something that they're happy with and they're going to healthily incorporate into their lives. As an extension from that, there are also always schools, colleges, fashion courses, and other people who may have use even sometimes for quite small scraps of fabric. And if you do have nice big cuts of nice fabrics that you've never used and are in very good condition, you can also look at selling those on. Personally, I have a lot of complicated feelings about contributing to the massive carbon footprint of the fashion industry. Buying secondhand fabric is something I do all the time, and the pieces of fabric that I just showed you, the wool check and then the 2 pieces of silk satin, they were both bought secondhand from someone else clearing out their stash. This stuff circulates. You're not going to make a lot of money, but it is going to end up in the hands of people like me who will use it and will appreciate it. Those are some of your options for getting rid of stuff. There are probably more. If you think of some that I've forgotten, please leave them in the comments. I love how the standard YouTube comment indicator is just to kind of gesture down towards the bottom of the screen somehow. One final thing on keeping stuff and getting rid of stuff. Little scraps of fabric, get rid of them. In general, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your stuff, but if you have pieces of fabric smaller than about 8 inches by 8 inches, just throw them away. You're never going to learn quilting. You're never going to start doing patchwork unless you have a specific project involving scraps of fabric in mind. Get rid of them. Unless your friends have specifically asked. Do not give your friends tiny scraps of fabric. Nobody wants pieces of crappy cotton that are this big and a weird shape. They just don't, I promise you. That is like one of my all-time pet peeves, is people who just have bin bags and bin bags full of tiny fabric scraps that are unusable. It's fine. The massive carbon footprint of the fashion industry comes from people like Wish and Primark and fast fashion retailers who produce huge quantities of very, very cheap clothes, most of which are thrown away after one or even no uses. It's not home sewers getting rid of tiny scraps. Just throw away your leftovers. It's not worth it. Your house and your peace of mind will thank me. Which moves us on to the final thing that I want to say, which is once you've gone through your stash, once you've got all the things that you want to keep organized in a way that you can see and use them, and you've got all the things that you don't want to keep happily moved on to new homes, what do we do different going forwards? For me, the whole point of this is so that I'm in a position to use what I have. By having my fabric all really clearly displayed, the next time I start a new system, I have to make a new character, I'm going to be able to immediately go, okay, this is what my costume brief is, let us look for fabric, and it will be easy and straightforward and I'm not going to miss things. As opposed to what I've done in the past, which is go, okay, this is my brief, this is what I want to make, so obviously I must now immediately buy fabric. Someone who's been sewing a lot longer than I have once turned to me and said, I couldn't possibly work through my stash at the rate at which you're suggesting, because I have costume briefs to work to which my response was, no, so does everyone. When you have this quantity of fabric, trust me, you're going to have something that fits the brief. And if you don't, why do you have this fabric? Anyway, digression. The other thing I want to do loads more of is sewing for myself. I am a somewhat unusual shape and have a somewhat atypical way of presenting myself. I could really do with more clothes that really fit me, both physically and as a person. And so I'm going to be making an effort to work through a lot of my stash instead of buying new clothes. Something that I've been trying to do for a while, but I think that I'm going to really double down on, is the idea of having a nil gain stash. You're allowed to buy stuff, but the overall size of the fabric stash can't increase. If I need to buy 5 meters of black linen for this next project and there's just nothing suitable in what I have, that's okay, but I've got to use up 5 meters from the stash somewhere, and that might be finally making that one 1940s blouse pattern that I've had my eye on for ages, maybe a couple of skirts or a pair of trousers, or it might be pulling out 5 meters of brocade and making a generic LARP gown that will come in handy at some point. Or if it can't, maybe I'll make it a different size and give it to one of my friends. I don't know yet. There's going to be that pressure to get stuff moving through the fabric stash and out of the fabric stash. And that way, hopefully, we do not end up in the position again where I'm looking at things and going, I have owned you for 13 years through however many different houses. Why are you still here? Hello, friends. Apologies for the jump scare. You're on the other side of the table today, and the reason for that is this is the side that my main fabric stash lives on. We don't talk about the pile. As you may be aware from previous videos, I have a problem, and the problem is I have way too much fabric. That's the theme of today's video. I would like to just hang out a bit, have a bit of a chat. We're gonna sort through some of the fabrics that I own, talk about what I want to do with them, and more importantly, when and how I think that's going to happen. I'm one of those people who will buy fabric and have it in their stash for 10 years and pull it out every time and be like, I know exactly what I was going to do with that. But it's the final step, the final hurdle that is the problem, and so let's address some of those hurdles. Let's get into it. Let's talk kirtles. So if you watched my Tudor kirtle video, you'll know that I am a big fan. It's a really nice versatile pattern. I know that it fits me quite well. Been beginning to question recently whether it still does fit me quite well. I think I managed to tailor the pattern down to the smallest possible size I could be, and unfortunately I'm not always that size. I have a red corduroy kirtle, which I adore. I wear it a lot. So here I have 4 meters of pink corduroy and 4 meters of grey corduroy. Now my vague plan with these two was was that I was going to try a variation on the pattern, do something a little bit more Italian. Basically, instead of having a center front closure and a very like pointed front waist, I was going to take a slightly higher waist and have a solid front with side back closures. And I think I vaguely had in my head, depending on whether I still have like black velvet in the stash, that I was going to try putting black velvet guards on the grey one, which is something a bit more historical. Then we've got the prints. This is a Lewis and Irene quilting cotton. I think it is 3¼ meters because it was on sale and they were running out. The main problem is it's super Christmassy. It's very definitely a Christmas print. There's no way you're getting around this. Don't ask me why Halloween prints are fine all year round, but Christmas prints are not. This, again, I was thinking original pattern, but because it's sort of a brocade-inspired pattern, there are motifs you can center. I was thinking closed front side lacing, but I didn't get it done in time for Christmas, and so I didn't do it. This is a Halloween print from, I believe, Moda. This one is definitely a Halloween print, and it's like a pastel Halloween print, so it's even better. I think this would be great for summer if I can get it done in time, because it's got flowers in it as well as the pumpkins. And then I also have this one, which I think is, if it's not Moda, it's the Ruby Star Society. Either way, so this one is super cute. It's got more obviously Halloween motifs with the cats and the jars of eyeballs and all this kind of carry on. But again, a slightly more spring summer color palette. And I definitely bought these two thinking, yeah, absolutely make kirtles out of that. And now I'm realizing how many, because this isn't it, there's more in the pile. I just feel like for every single print I default to making a kirtle, and I don't know if that's necessarily what I want to do. So we might explore some other options. I've recently purchased the Laughing Moon mid-Victorian wrapper pattern. Now annoyingly, I think that takes like a lot of fabric, and I don't necessarily have enough of those. Maybe I can wing it. Maybe I can figure something out. I need to print out the pattern and see. So deep in my time of buying mystery fabric, by which I mean lockdown, two things that came up were these two. So this is a very drapey, I'm assuming, de viscose, which explains why it creases so badly. This has a really nice woven in pattern of, I think, ginkgo. It's a little bit hard to see. Wait, which side is supposed to be the front? Is this side supposed to be the front? I genuinely can't tell which is supposed to be the front and which is supposed to be the back. Either way, so it's a navy blue viscose, which has this woven in jacquard pattern. It's super soft and drapey. And I also got this really interesting chiffon, which is also a navy, and it has flowers both woven in and dyed in. It's a really cool effect. It's a really interesting piece of fabric. These two go together quite nicely. I basically thought to myself, well, you could make an outfit out of these two. And my general conclusion was that I was going to make a underdress, probably rectangular construction, maybe mix it up a bit and do the more Eastern European rectangular construction where the side gores go into the sleeves and the sleeve gores are a little bit further out. Maybe give that a go. And then an overdress out of the pattern chiffon, which I was kind of vaguely imagining as something like a hangarok or an apron dress or a sarafan, which is a Central Asian garment which is superficially kind of similar to the hangarok. Why haven't I done this yet? It's not the most exciting project in the world. I would love these pieces once they are made, but they're going to be all rectangles. There's going to be a lot of seam finishing that has to happen because both of these fray. This one is see-through, so the seams are fraying. You'll be able to see it when you're wearing it. It's just apathy, that. So this is a big piece of purple linen, just very standard from Maggie's Fab Fabrics on eBay, which I can never say. And then this is part of a duvet cover that I got from a charity shop many years ago. Now, the original plan with this, back when people cared about Game of Thrones, I mean, cared more about Game of Thrones, everyone wanted to make that one dress with the wrap over front and the big long sleeves. Or maybe they didn't, but at least that's the dress that the pattern companies all copied. Crucially, there was functionally two patterns from two different pattern companies for the same style of dress. Some years ago I made one of them. That was pretty cool, it was pretty fun, and I always intended to make a second one. I bought that brown linen for the one I made historically and this purple linen at the same time. I had the contrast fabrics already in my stash and planned out. I made the first one and then I stalled out and never made the second one. I think in the depths of lockdown I was like speculatively making LARP kit, because obviously there would be more LARP after that lifted, and there hasn't been. Everyone who comes up with a fantasy LARP seems to be allergic to giving you like a high fantasy costume brief. Everyone wants to be very gritty and real, and I'm like, no, let me wear a purple princess dress. There is, thankfully, by the looks of it, something in the works that would give me the opportunity to wear a purple princess dress. But the first event is far too far away and I cannot travel that far and also camp. We'll see if anything comes of that. There's a lot of random bits of cotton in here, which I feel like I should remember more for when I'm lining things and need random bits of cotton. I will forget this. So here we have two very different brown velvets. So on the one hand, I've got a very heavy, slightly longer pile, dark brown furnishing velvet in a considerable quantity. And on the other, I've got this very light brown, quite soft, quite short pile clothing velvet. Genuinely, no real clear plans. I think I've thought of things to do with these two fabrics before, but I think for both of them, nothing's really felt right, nothing's really stuck. I do think that the plan at some point must have been medieval or Renaissance gowns. This is a gown in the sense of like a heavy overgarment, not a gown in the sense of a dress. I don't hate that idea. That is something that I want to explore, especially since I recently there's a new book out about making medieval menswear. Very excited to try out some of the stuff in that. But I think my main problem is that I'm just not feeling super inspired by either of these, which when there's other stuff in the stash which is inspiring just means they get bumped further and further down the list. I don't know what to do about that one. I think hang tight, the moment will arise. Again, somebody, anybody, run more high fantasy LARPs. This, nearly 5 meters of brown jacquard. I'm pretty sure this has been in my stash since the first year of university. I needed a brown jacquard for a specific costume piece. This 5 meter length was all I could find, so I bought it and it has sat ever since. And at various times I've come up with various different things I wanted to do with it. Several times I've decided that ultimately I'm going to make a bustle dress out of it, but every time I don't get around to it and then my reason for needing a bustle dress goes away again. Occasionally I come back to it and think, well, I could just make something voluminous and medieval or fantasy inspired. Gosh, this has been in my stash so long that some of the loose hairs attached to it have colour in them. Again, I think this is just going to hang around and wait for a time when it is useful. It's such a big cut of fabric that I don't want to nibble away at it making small things, which I could, but I've got no reason to. A time will come when I need either a Victorian dress or a medieval gown, or there's just such a host of things it could be. It's a nice weight, it's a nice balance between a pattern and not being sort of overwhelming. Incidentally, I don't think I've said this yet, but if you have any ideas, with the caveat that I am insanely picky, I don't expect you to manage the fact that I'm insanely picky. I'm just saying that if you're like, oh, I would make this out of it, and I'm like, I'm absolutely not going to do that. It's not a judgment on you or how good your idea is. It's just that I'm really difficult to please. Don't let that stop you leaving suggestions. Don't be offended if I then don't take your suggestion. It's not you, it's me. Mystery silks. I mean, I say that, they're not really mystery. So many years ago, long after the proper fabric shop in the city that I lived had closed down. Yes, there was one fabric shop and it closed down. There was a much smaller sort of notions and haberdashery and yarn shop that was quite upmarket, but a local clothing manufacturer was shutting down and they needed to sell off all of their dead stock of mostly silks. So they basically just took over the upstairs room of this shop for like 4 weeks and sold off a whole bunch of silks at relatively cheap prices. I bought a lot of fabric, like especially for at the time I think I was no longer a student. No, I was definitely no longer a student, but as a recently a student, I bought a lot of fabric. Over the years, I've whittled down and used bits and bobs so that my original plans for those fabrics really don't factor into it anymore. Hang on, I don't think I can tell the story without all of the fabrics. There's more. There we go. Still not all of them, but at least it's slightly more of the pile. I had a bunch of ideas at the time, most of which have not stood the test of changes in my aesthetic, changes in my use cases for fabric, and changes in my gender expression. So I have this lovely navy chiffon or something very similar to it with this all over tan pattern. It has this beautiful drape to it. It is 100% silk. At the time I was getting really into like vintage, and I thought this would be ideal because it's a very neutral pattern and it's got a beautiful hand to it, and that I just am not interested in those kinds of dresses very much anymore. We have the two checks. What I always remember as being grey, but I think is actually slightly brown. It's a brownish grey. It's very neutral, not quite a taffeta. It's a little coarser and a little softer than I would typically imagine a taffeta to be. I think there's 4 meters of that. There's a very similar pink check, a little bit coarser than a taffeta, softer hand than a taffeta. Gorgeous colour. Absolutely cannot fault my taste at all. I thought that these two, one was going to be a bustle dress and one was going to be an early crinoline with ruffles. There's 4 meters of each of them. Even if you cut fabric like I do, I might get a bustle dress out of 4 meters if I was really miserly with it and also probably used an accent color. There's no way I was ever getting a tiered ruffled crinoline gown out of 4 meters. That was never going to happen. Above and beyond that, I'm just not that interested. I'm always going to be obsessed with bustle gowns. That's never going away. But I have very few opportunities to wear them, and I already have several. Yes, I can and probably should put more effort into figuring out a bustle dress pattern that really fits me, but there's extras for that because that also means figuring out a Victorian corset that actually fits me instead of is just sort of weirdly woman shaped. And then when am I going to wear it? At this point, I'm going to have to run the 1880s Victorian fantasy that I want to see in the world. Checks are also a really neutral pattern though. You can use checks for a lot of human history, so there is the option of using these for a different period in history. I just have never made up my mind or had a good reason to pick a different period in history. And increasingly these days I need a reason to do a historical costume that is a woman's costume, especially since increasingly I don't play women at LARP games. Ah well. We also have a couple of fabrics that I just picked up because I picked them up. I liked them. I liked how they looked. They didn't have any good reason. So I've got quite a lot of this. It's, I think, meant to be a lining silk, but it is 100% silk in the most astonishing turquoise colour. I refuse to line things in silk for one reason and one reason only. I sweat. So silk linings just get wrecked. They look awful. Even if they start out looking lovely, they look awful after I've worn it to 2 games. I did want to use this as an outer fabric and just sort of reinforce it with a backing cotton or something, but I have no idea what for. It's just such a great colour. There's quite a lot of it. I also have this incredible purple, not quite a Dupioni. There's a couple of meters of this. It's the most incredible, like deep plummy wine colour. This is such a great colour and weight and length of fabric that I have had plans for what I was going to do with this multiple times, and every time the game I was going to make that for doesn't happen for some reason. So I'm starting to lose my mind a bit with that one. And then there are, so a big chunk of the fabrics that I bought were for a specific project. This was the time when the Hobbit movies were coming out, and when the Hobbit movies were coming out, I got into my personal favourite hobby horse, which is that when Thorin dies, sorry, spoilers for a 100-year-old book, when Thorin dies, someone else becomes king, and I'm like, but he had a sister. Does everyone remember that he had a sister? Filian Killy had her mum. Her name's Dis. She's Thorin's sister. Anyway, at the time, I was like, Hollywood is just afraid of female dwarves and their magnificent beards. I started designing what a dwarf queen would look like in the Peter Jackson universe. I never got very far with it. I bought all the fabrics with like vague ideas in mind, and at the time I was still very new to making costumes, especially big complex costumes. Don't do it like that. Don't like imagine something and go out and buy all the fabrics for it and then realize that you don't have a plan. You got to make the plan in detail and then you start choosing fabrics. It did mean that I had a bunch of like really good fabrics just hanging around in my life for a while. And over the years, I've actually like used some of them for other stuff, but there are a few holdovers. I have this really gorgeous shot silk, but it's shot purple and blue, so it's just very, very subtle. I think there's like a meter of this. This was going to be the covering on the stays, which I was also going to embroider with gold work and use like gold jump rings and findings to give a relief effect. I was going to put dragons on it. It was going to be great. Still not 100% certain that I don't want to do that project someday. It's just such a big commitment. I have this really lovely, really light and flowy patterned silk in this amazing deep forest green. This will 100% be LARP kit someday. I can tell. I just know, but the right thing has just not come up. And then this really dramatic, almost corded brown silk dupioni. Again, I do not understand why I have not had a LARP event where this would be an appropriate fabric choice. And I can only conclude everyone is afraid of high fantasy and letting people wear fancy costumes. We shall see what happens with those guys. But because they're silk, I'm not too keen to rush into anything with them. They can hang around until I have a reason. That's okay for silk. Silks were the plan. So this is another silk that I got at the same time as all the others, because that's honestly where I bought 90% of the silk in my stash. I would love to be in a place where a higher percentage of my stash was nice fabrics like silks, and where I was like, I'm never going to stop buying fabrics without a project in mind, but I would like to. I'm at the place now where I can occasionally speculatively buy 8 meters of £10 a meter silk from Ammo Threads without a clear project in mind, just because I like it a lot. Like, that's not going to be a regular occurrence, but that is the kind of thing that I can do sometimes, but I don't because my stash is full of random crap. You see my problem. Unlike many of the other silks that I bought way back when, this one does have a plan in mind, and I have never got into it and unfurled it to see if it's actually enough fabric to do that. It's another very lightweight lining fabric, so I would need to back it. And the problem is that I need to finalize my fitted kirtle pattern to then derive from it a coat-hardy pattern so that I can make the dress from The Last Unicorn. I don't normally do cosplay. I'm very into like original stuff. I just, for some reason, that one, I need that one. I need the dress from The Last Unicorn. The other one, so this is a kimono bolt, and by the standards of kimono bolts, this is a long one. There's a lot of this. It's, I believe, silk. It has a really nice crisp hand in the way that some kimono silks do. It's this gorgeous orange check, almost red. Problem is I knew exactly what I was going to make with this. I was going to make a floor-length coat. The style of floor-length coats that certainly my first few years of LARP was basically all I wore. Fitted top, long flowing skirt, some kind of interesting sleeve thing going on. I wore so many of those. They're all basically just the once upon a time patterns from Buckles, every single one. This was for a character that I never got to play. And unlike some of the other LARP costumes that I never got to make, where I'm just like, okay, we'll just move on from that, no longer have an emotional connection to this costume, I was really bummed about not being able to play this character. And there's not been an opportunity to sort of rejig them for a new setting. I'm just going to say it again. Epic fantasy, high fantasy, let us play high fantasy games. Let me wear red plaid silk, orange plaid silk, who knows? To your game. It will improve everyone's life. This stuff, I have 10 meters of this because that seemed like a good idea at the time. It is a very, very thin embroidered crinkle polyester. What the hell am I going to make out of this? Back when crinkle stuff was like in fashion, I remember it being like lots of slip dresses and very clingy, slightly gothy tops. Not really my vibe. At the same time, could give it more structure, but I don't know if that would ruin the crinkleness of it. It's not worth trying to iron the crinkleness out. It's just not worth doing. There's 10 meters of it. That would just be futile. I suspect the answer is some kind of like voluminous cape or gown. There's such a very narrow set of circumstances under which those would be suitable, such as a high fantasy LARP. I really need to stop going on about this. Guys, I'm dying out here. Stop telling me to wear brown tunics. Or it's just kind of like pseudo-Victorian, but not really. So just like wear a waistcoat, it's fine. Those can be fun, but not when they're the only thing on offer. Oh, yeah, I don't know. There's so much of it. Answers on a postcard. this thing. This is an absolutely massive chunk of wool. I always remember this as being like blanket thick. It's not quite that bad. Like, it's definitely coat weight rather than clothing weight, but it's not unmanageable. Over the years, I've had various different ideas of what I was going to do with this, and they've all been sort of coat adjacent. At one point, I thought I was going to make what in the industry we call a murder robe, which is basically just sort of a big generic hooded garment you can throw on at night, either to monster or to murder your friends in the dark. Because I thought it would be funny to have a murder robe that was forest green and check, but I never really got around to it. And then I was gonna make a bustle era coat. At the time I was playing a character who wore bustle dresses. They were all very elaborate and that, and I thought like having a coat makes sense for this character and would let me do more outside stuff at these games. And then I wasn't playing that game anymore, so it didn't matter. I just keep going backwards and forwards on like what kind of coat I want to make out of this, and the answer is almost certainly not just a regular coat for everyday wear, but I've never been able to pin down the details. I've just never been able to figure out exactly what it is that I want. So it just takes up a lot of space. This was an eBay find, by the way. It was a secondhand, someone else was destashing. It was not expensive. Silk brocade. So I don't have a lot of silk brocade. I mean, I'm saying that, hang on. That is, those are, that is. Oh, there's probably more in here, but when will I ever find it? Oh, that is. And that, for a while, because I was doing a lot of historical games, I got into the habit of looking out for and buying someone who makes historical costume, would occasionally just offload their scraps in a Facebook group. And I was like, I don't need big chunks of silk brocade. I just need enough for a partlet or some sleeves or some trim. Well, now I have a pile of weirdly shaped silk brocade scraps that I don't know what to do with. I mean, I say I don't know what to do. There is the time-honoured, use them for small trimmings and bits. I can use them for historical accessories, which is honestly the bit that I always, I mean, doesn't everyone concentrate on doing like the big gown and not the partlet or the hood or the sleeves? Oh, this one was actually my scraps. That's from the tea gown that I made. They're all great. They're all reasonably similar weights. Some of them have quite big pieces. Some of them have very small pieces. I did have the idea, and it's not the best idea. It's not quite come together in my brain yet, but I did have the idea of seeing if I could make a jacket that was somehow modular instead of sewing all of the pieces together. So the fronts and the back and maybe the skirts and the sleeves were all separate pieces and they had eyelets in them and you could lace them together. That way I could make as many pieces as I wanted out of any given fabric, and I could have multiples of each piece. So I could decide that I was going sleeveless with it this time, or I could decide that I was putting the skirts on this time, and I could combine 2 different fabrics, or I could combine 5 different fabrics. I could swap the red sleeves for the blue sleeves. The problem is that's a massive project. What sounds like a scrappy kind of thing actually would require a lot of forethought and planning. I would need exactly the right jacket pattern. I would need to get the fit exactly where I wanted it. I have an Italian fly press now, which the setup still needs a few little tweaks because it's a little hard to use without actually screwing it into the work surface, which I don't want to do just yet. Setting the eyelets in was still like, that's a lot of faff, even if it's not like, oh god, I have to go out and hammer things. I have to hammer in 200 eyelets. No, I just have to crank the thing, but there's still steps to it. It's still a lot of planning. Be a lot of edge finishing because every single piece would have edges. It's not an idea I'm abandoning. It's just maybe not on the cards straight away when I have other big projects hanging over me. So there's some backstory to this. This is a purple and lime green. It's darker than lime green. It's more of an... Anyway, it's a purple and green houndstooth checked wool. This is 100% wool. It came with 2 smaller pieces of purple wool. Somewhere I also have those. I was considering playing a field LARP system in spite of my better judgment. So I was looking for wools. I was on a very strict budget. So I was looking on eBay for secondhand remnants. And excitingly, a lot of what I could find cheaply as 100% wools were wild patterns. Big green check, that's where that came from. There was a bunch of tartans and there was this, all of which were not on brief, according to the explicit wording of the costume brief. There's a whole bunch of reasons why I didn't end up playing that game, but that was certainly one of them. And ever since, I've just been determined to use this lime green and purple houndstooth fabric in a distinctly historical manner, despite being not a very historical colour combination or pattern. I think my front runner, actually maybe it still is my front runner, and has been basically the whole time, is Dressed from Patterns of Fashion 3, 4? 3, which is a dress designed to be worn with a gown over the top, so only the front and the hem of the dress are patterned or made of a more decorative fabric, and I think that this would go great for that. I think we can make that happen. We're a bit more than halfway through the main fabric stash, so brief interlude. Thank you to everyone who gave me book recs on my previous video. I appreciate the sentiment, if not necessarily all of the content. It's one of those things where you're like, Terry Pratchett fans can't be that bad. I would still consider myself a Terry Pratchett fan. And then people in the last video where I explicitly said, I'm not interested right now in anything by a straight white dude writing a doorstop, recommended me a straight white dude writing doorstops. Like, that is what Terry Pratchett is, you guys. Like, I know he's very good and moderately inclusive and very funny and all this. Rest assured, I have read Terry Pratchett. However, he is a straight white dude writing doorstops. You're not helping the reputation of Terry Pratchett fans. Anyway, however, some of the recommendations were on brand. Off the back of this, because everyone keeps telling me to, I have indeed read now Gideon the Ninth. And I didn't like it. Like, I can see why other people liked it. It's not for me. I did not enjoy that. And, okay, look, come here. When I say I want a book that has queer themes, what I mean is I would like to read a book which engages with queerness in a meaningful way, either as part of the plot, for example, a romance, or as a overarching theme within the book. When I say queer themes, I do not mean some of the characters are lesbians and it comes up like 3 times in passing. I know we're all desperate for queer rep, but like, queer characters existing in a story does not mean that that story has queer themes. I need you to do something with it. Yeah. So that was a bust for me, is what it is. We'll just move on from there. What else was there? A bunch of people recommended Becky Chambers. I've read Becky Chambers. It's fine. Not really. Like, I've read a couple. I'm done now. I know how they go. I like a bit grittier and more plot driven. I have also read This Is How You Lose the Time War. It was good. I mean, like, technically it's very interesting how it was done, but it was just fine for me. I'm glad I read it. I rank it higher than the other books that I have just mentioned. I'm starting to think when people on the internet tell me this is the best book they've ever read, they just mean it has lesbians in it, which is fine, but not a woman, not really experienced that form of attraction. Like, that just doesn't do a lot for me. I'm really happy for you and your lesbians. They're not enough to carry a book for me personally. A whole lot of people also recommended the Murderbot Diaries. Given that I really liked Witch King, it seems like I would probably also like the Murderbot Diaries. That's like a 14-book series. I don't have that kind of commitment in me at the moment. Also, and I realize this is not a popular opinion, but I have written a genderless non-human character does not necessarily equal queer rep for me. Okay? I can enjoy a genderless non-human character. That's not my experience of queerness. I'm not saying I won't enjoy it. I'm sure I will. Just, I don't think a robot that uses it as its pronouns is queer rep. That's not it for me. You have all reminded me that Martha Wells has written a whole bunch of fantasy in like trilogies, which are manageable. So maybe I'm gonna go with that just to get something that isn't YA into the rotation. But there were a lot of really good, like, the books that only one person recommended. A lot of the time I was like, oh, okay, interesting, let's have a look. And some of them so far have been immediate bounces, and some of them I've been like, oh, I might read that. So, you know, more updates to come. As always, Ko-fi or memberships, you can read my blogs of like what I'm reading. Anyway, more fabric. So this is 4 meters of a pretty thin but pretty dense boiled wool in this dark red colour. I bought this off a friend who was destashing. You'll very quickly realise in this channel that I never pay full price for anything. I didn't really have a plan for this when I bought it. It was just very good. Yeah, I got nothing. Genuinely, not a clue. Gown? This is a particularly fun checked brushed cotton flannel. I originally bought this because on eBay it was labelled as wool. It was not wool. The tag on it was in German, and the German word for cotton is like Baumwolle or something like that. I had various elaborate kit plans for this over the years, taking advantage of the fact that it's a weird selection of colours and plaid, two things that fantasy kit brief makers hate to see you wear. I think I'm going to make pyjamas out of it. I don't know if that's going to be pyjama trousers, which is what I normally wear, or like a dress, which is what I prefer for the summer. I don't know. It's brushed cotton. It's pyjamas. This is pyjama. This, again, if you're new to the channel, hi. I buy a lot of sheets because they come in exciting fabrics that I then want to make clothes out of. These days, almost exclusively buy Halloween sheets. However, I can trace back where that desire came from, and it is this. So this is a double sheet set that I think I got from Primark in like my last year of university. So this is a while ago. Problem is that I bought it because I'd seen this pattern and assumed that the whole thing would be the same all over, and of course it is not. So the other side of the duvet cover is this really different pattern, which no longer worked with what I wanted to do, because what I was thinking then was 18th century. It's in this weird space where there's probably enough to make some of the comfortable dresses that I'm making like staples of my wardrobe, so I probably could make a kirtle out of it. It's very thin. I don't think that would be good. I could probably make one of the hanbok dresses out of it. I already have one that's white. Do I need one that's cream? Summer dress might be the answer though. I'm going to keep figuring out pattern wise, but summer dress might be the answer. So you know me, you know I love a quilting cotton for garments. Here's a selection of those. This was a remnant piece. It is Little Foxes. I remember this being quite big. I was looking at it and going, I remember this being like 3 meters. No way this can be like 3 meters. But I know for a fact that this is 4 meters. So maybe it's right. So I have the foxes. I have this, obviously. This was, I bought a whole load of Christmas themed quilting cottons when I was playing a LARP game that was Christmas themed. If you're thinking that sounds jolly, it was not. It was a horror game. I also have this, which I bought as a remnant, which is a Lewis and Irene border print. There's this all over Alice in Wonderland print, which is directional, but other than that, a lot of fun. I forget how much there is of this. It's quite a lot. And then I have this. It's another border print, this time in this super cute little pastel-y fun spring colours. So, what do I want to make with these? Let's just head it off the pass. I could make kirtles. Don't think I want to make kirtles, especially not from the border prints. That would be really awkward and a bad use of that fabric. Certainly for the border prints and the Alice in Wonderland print, whatever I originally bought them for, because I originally bought them for something. I think I was maybe thinking skirts or whatever. I actually think the answer is Lolita dresses. Less clear on the foxes and the Christmas trees, but certainly the border prints would look incredible. And the Alice in Wonderland is basically on brand anyway. The other two, I think I need to figure out how much there is, because I think it's like 4 meters and like 3, but I don't know. Once we figured that out, potentially we're back into the rotation of historically inspired semi-casual dresses that I appear to be collating. So maybe it's a wrapper, maybe it's an earlier kirtle, maybe it's a hanbok dress. What the heck is this? So the answer is that this is a crinkle effect, weirdly ribbed pink heavyweight fabric. I think it is. Yep, it's stretchy. I genuinely cannot tell you what I was... No, that's a lie. That's a total lie. I can tell you what I was thinking when I bought this. This was a remnant. I picked it up because I thought it looked interesting. I didn't really have a clear plan, but at some point it occurred to me that I thought you could make this into like a cocoon coat from like the 20s or something. I don't hate that idea. I think it needs some fine tuning. It's certainly an interesting fabric to try and do anything sculptural with, because on the one hand it is kind of heavy and it's got body, but on the other hand it is a knit, which means that it's more inclined to drape than hold its shape. I think the pattern and the way the fabric looks does lend itself to something kind of architectural, but we shall have to see if the actual qualities of the fabric hold up to that. This is one of those pieces of fabric that I've had for over a decade at this point. Well over a decade at this point. I just have no idea. This is probably the least interesting segment visually. Textured white cottons. Don't ask me why I have so many textured white cottons. So I have this white cotton fabric with, I was going to say irregular, but they're not irregular. They're spaced in a pattern. Anyway, it's got pin tucks all over it. I have this big piece of white cotton with a chain stitched embroidered pattern all over it. I have this piece of white seersucker, I guess. It's definitely got the vibe of seersucker if it's not technically that. And then this little piece of embroidered white cotton with a floral motif. So there's two directions I could go here. On the one hand, perfectly reasonable summer dresses. I am that person who advocates for wearing all white clothes. If you want to look like an adult who's got your stuff together, wear something that's all white. It looks so grown up and honestly much fancier. White is fancier than any other color because you're like, yes, I have something that is completely white and I've maintained it completely white. This is something I will stand by. However, again, I think these were all either charity shop finds or someone else's D-stash. I know what I got these for. The plan, I have a absolutely massive quantity of beads. They're all in shades of like blue, green, some metallics. And in my head, particularly the embroidered cotton was perfect because I was going to make a dress, probably like a ball gowny kind of dress, in this white textured cotton and then bead it really heavily, following the lines of the embroidery, taking inspiration from the textured pattern already in the fabric. Now, you can see the obvious problem. That is too long-winded a project to make for most LARPs. That is a project that would take me years. So I would have to find a pattern I liked, make sure it really fit well, cut all the pieces out, spend however long beading, hope I had enough beads or enough of the right kind of beads. I'm not too stressed about that one. I think I would just do it in a very free-handed kind of way, and like as long as it was all roughly the same color palette, in my head it would be beaded so heavily that it wouldn't matter if I was like changing. It was a different kind of beads on the bodice front than on the sleeves than on the skirt. The general theme and color scheme was staying more or less the same. One set of seed beads is not a million miles different from a different set of seed beads. Anyway, do all of the beading, sew it all together, and at that point hope that it still fit. It's something that I've been holding off on because I have projects that I started in 2020. Even just 5 years later, I'm looking at them and going, I don't want that anymore. I want to finish that. I'm no longer interested in that object. What can I say? A lot has changed. Sometimes you put off doing things because they're just boring, and sometimes you put things off because they would take a million years, and what if you didn't like it when you were finished? So these are really old. And by really old, I mean I think at least one of these bits of fabrics dates back to I was still living with my parents. This is 2 4-meter lengths of very finely striped red cotton. I initially bought one. Some years went by. I realized that 4 meters was never going to be enough fabric to do the project that I had in mind. I spent a long time on and off searching online for another very finely striped red and white fabric. Eventually found one, ordered another 4 meters, and then when it arrived, was not completely confident that the stripes were the same size. I'm still not 100% sure on whether the stripes are the same size. The fact that I have them wrapped in 2 different directions. They are both stripes running parallel to the selve edge. They're not. I wasn't that foolish. Anyway, what did I want to make with them? I wanted to make a robe à la Française. Certainly for me, 20 years ago, it was a dream project. I had Patterns of Fashion 1. As an older teenager, that was quite something. I knew that silk was going to be out of my budget for a really long time, so I was looking at something else that I could do that would look deliberate. The stripes really spoke to me. The fact that they're so fine that from a distance it doesn't necessarily look like a stripe. There is, in fact, the stripes are so fine that even just looking at them kind of gives me this weird optical illusion effect that I think that if I actually did make a dress out of these, I would give myself eye strain. So that's big and clever. I did ultimately make a robe à la Française. I made it out of black curtain brocade, and it's the gothest thing in the world. I love 18th century women's clothing. I would like to make more 18th century women's clothing. It always comes down to I need to figure out stays, because I do have a pair of stays, but again, I made them nearly 20 years ago. They don't fit very well. They're not very well made. I also need to think through how I'm going to accommodate it to my body and the way I like to wear clothes, rather than, you know, trying to fit someone else's idea of what a woman should look like. I don't feel the need to conform to that, even when it's women's clothing from an extremely long time ago. I am not a woman and I live now, so we'll change some things. But yeah, I guess this is just going to hang around until I decide that I'm making a robe à la Française or I give up. This So this is another kimono bolt. This one is a wool. It's very fine, it's very soft, and it has a absolutely lovely pattern that is simultaneously, like, I look at it and go, that's a kimono pattern. But I also think it does an okay job at medieval brocade, and that's why I got this. If it wasn't the first, it was one of the first Morgandana videos I ever watched, and it was making the short fitted gown with the dagged edges, and I wanted one. And like so many things in my stash, it has been sat around waiting for me to finalise, or at least do a better job of my fitted kirtle pattern. I don't have time to do that right now, so this is gonna continue hanging around until I have not stopped wanting to make that. So we're just gonna have to wait for me to have the time to sort out that pattern. Because once I do sort it out, once it's sorted, you know I'm just gonna make like 12 of those things in exactly the same way. I'm just like, I'm gonna make 12 Tudor kirtles. It's gonna happen. I think we need to tackle where my stash initially overflowed from under the table is onto the shelves. And so now I have all this fabric on my shelves and a stack of books on my cutting table. That feels wrong. So we should sort that. Random scrap cotton, random piece of metallic-y foiled chiffon-y stuff, random piece of kimono silk that's a bit worse for wear and I think left over from a project, random bit of cotton, random bits left over. What was this? What did I make? What did I make that was grey and heavy? I made a cloak, left over from a cloak. Random cream bit of foiled chiffon. I remember what I used that for. I used that for prototype doublet. I never got that pattern to work. Random bit of lining material. Another random bit of lining material. Gosh, there's so much random lining material. Ah, I understand why there's loads of bits of random lining material. What is the... Ah, this was a mystery fabric from a mystery fabric bundle. I made an unboned kirtle out of this. It shrank in the wash. Not once, every time I washed it. So this has to be LARP kit that isn't washed. The reason I have so many bits of random lining material is because this is the guts of an unpicked kimono. Just going to put that to one side. So this is like 3 meters of dress net. I'm going to say dress net rather than tulle. I know everyone calls this tulle. It's not. Tulle is very soft and very fine. If it can hold a petticoat out, it's probably not tulle, it's probably dress net. Anyway, mystery fabric bundle. I got like 3 meters of black dress net and I could make a petticoat out of this. That would be fine. I don't need a petticoat. I don't find making petticoats interesting or fun. Even when I'm making standard cotton petticoats for under like Victorian dresses. I use patterned fabrics and put loads of trim on them because otherwise they're really dull. The idea I had for this is to grab another fabric, possibly this. This is just a chunk of lining material. It was like 3 meters of lining material for £1, so I got a couple of different colors just thinking that I could use them for random stuff because when do I ever buy lining, right? And my vague idea was that I could make some kind of fantasy gown where the outer surface was just the dress net laid over the lining material and each piece would be 2-layered, sandwiched together, either just sewn regularly at the seams or potentially I would cut the seam allowance off, bind all the edges, connect them together. That sounds fiddly and annoying, but equally doable with the right pattern. I don't hate that idea. It's the kind of thing that if I wanted to make a video out of it, I'd have to come up with the rest of the costume. These days I only make fancy costumes for videos. Needs to percolate slightly more, needs to marinade. That's another kimono lining. As well as the silk brocades, I have lots of little bits of plain silks. Same basic idea, good for trims, good for patchwork. This, I was running into the problem that all of my fabric was good fabric. So I didn't really have anything for like mock-ups, lining, backing for patchwork. This was £1 a meter, so I bought 10 because that's a normal human thing to do. And it is a pale pink with metallic crinkle, not quite a chiffon, not quite a crepe. I don't know what to do with this now. It's not structurally sound enough. I bought it online, so I didn't know it was going to be this soft and drapey, so it's not structurally sound enough for most mock-ups. Part of me feels like I should just make a massive dress out of it. But also, can someone tell me why I keep buying 10-meter lengths of crinkle polyester? It had not occurred to me until now, but this is a reoccurring problem. Behold, the Astro Cats. This is another sheet set. Unlike 99% of the sheet sets that I buy, we actually used this one. This is a real set of sheets that was really on my bed for some time until we decided that it was too tired. And I was like, well, obviously don't throw away the pastel rainbow space cat. Obviously I'm going to wear it. I know exactly what I want to make out of this. No idea if I've got enough fabric, but it is a big, elaborate, kind of pointless costume, which meant I had to have the time and the energy and the inclination to make a big, elaborate, kind of pointless costume for YouTube. It's a historical era that no one cares about, so it's a pretty hard sell. Well, I'd say it's a pretty hard sell to go from that, but it's only a hard sell if you jump off from selling people on the grounds of them liking the historical era. If you're just like, I made a big, fancy, elaborate costume and it has space cats on it, the fact that it's based on a historical pattern is kind of incidental at that point. So it's mostly the time and the energy and the inclination. I'm gonna level with you there. I need mock-up fabric, take 2. Again, it was £1 a metre. It looked like I had learnt from my lesson from the crinkle chiffon. Not so much. The pattern's fine, the pattern's relatively unremarkable. But it is, I think, meant as an upholstery or furnishing fabric. It's not super thick. It has more body than like a standard cotton. So it's been more useful than the crinkle chiffon. It's not been my all-purpose mock-up fabric as I thought it was going to be. These are not recent purchases, by the way. Both of these I've had for minimum 4 years, if not 5. I regularly get some use out of this just because it's a good structural lining fabric for a lot of things. If I need it to not show through, I can use the backside, which is not white, but it's very pale. Otherwise, it's cream with pink and blue abstract flowers on it. That's fairly neutral. This is just going to hang around and get chipped away at as I need inner linings, structural layers, a foundation, mock-ups for sturdier pieces like doublets and stays, and it's okay. It does its job. This is wool that I bought off someone who was destashing. I think it's 2 or 2.5 meters each. Black and red. This is nice wool. This is what I would consider to be a suiting or dress weight wool. It was a really good price. It's a solid colour, it's wool. It was going to work for LARP kit. Unfortunately, I immediately got an idea of what I wanted to make out of it, because I decided I wanted to make a fitted kirtle that was party coloured, so half and half, but also I was going to do like some chevrons over the hips, so it was actually closer to being quartered than just party coloured. Can you guess why I haven't done that yet? Yes, it's because that pattern doesn't yet work in the way that I want it to. So yeah, they're just gonna hang on until that happens. There's a lot of random bits and bobs up here. There's random bits of cotton, there's random bits of, there's all this. So this is, I forget exactly what, it's polyester. I'm pretty sure it's polyester or some kind of synthetic. It is a very lightly ribbed dress crepe. It's very light, it's very flowy. This is what I got. For Punk Rock Moraine, I made a pair of big, loose fitting, it's a pair of trousers where each leg effectively is a circle skirt or possibly a half circle skirt. I can't remember whether it was a half circle per leg or a whole circle per leg. It was a lot and they're great. I love them. It looks like a skirt, but you're actually wearing trousers. However, it means that I have all of these offcuts of just this generic black flowy fabric. Some of the offcuts are quite big. Some of them are a bit of a weird shape, but most of them are quite big. I just have no idea what to do with them. Maybe I need to come up with some kind of plan where I make a costume just on a specific color. Maybe? I don't know what I want to do with that. And then we've got this. So these fabrics all have to stay together because they are part of the same video. I started this video 2 years ago, at least. I've not really got any further with it in that whole time. This is the bit of YouTube they don't tell you about, is that sometimes you will just do things and they don't quite work and you're not sure how to fix them. If I was more diligent about my upload schedule, I suspect that I would have had to push through and come up with something. I wasn't. I didn't. Now I've got a whole folder full of footage that at some point I will do something with, but I do have to make the rest of the video to make it work. I think I'm about at the place now where I figured out what I didn't like about that video and what I can fix. The general theme was that this was a selection of mystery fabrics, so I absolutely wasn't in control of which fabrics I got. And from that random selection of fabrics, I was trying to make a costume. I think I focused too much on making individual pieces without thinking about how they would work together in a costume. And I think by starting with the foundational pieces that were kind of, I don't want to say they were boring, but they were kind of boring. I just didn't give myself a lot of room to be creative and have fun with it. And lo, it didn't quite work. I wasn't quite happy with it. This was fun. We should do this again sometime. Maybe when I tackle the pile of fabric that's currently eating an entire corner of the floor space in my room, which is not very much. Nice laid back little interlude while I was just finishing up some other projects. I've got a really fun sewing project in the works. It's a bit experimental. I hope it comes together and I hope you enjoy it. I've about hit my breaking point, so I'm off to go read another KJ Charles. So dream big, and I'll see you next time.